Time to kick off another football frenzy with Dave in the City on Locks of the Week Radio.
Coast to coast, internet sports talk, Locks of the Week.
Doc Rivers continues to time and time again not get it when it comes to getting... Oh! Let him play!
How Connecticut are you? Are you wearing khakis and a polo? Regarding Lynch, who cares? What was he going to do today? Was he going to address each reporter? Oh, thank you for the question.
Cap ran through the entire Yankee lineup, but he left out one guy, and his name is Alex Rodriguez.
I like to try and forget about him because.
From Los Angeles, this is Dave in the City, brought to you by Locks of the Week Radio. Now, here's Dave Medina.
Good evening, sports fans, and a pleasure to have you here for the big Wednesday show. Good to have you with us on a huge week of sports and a week that featured many upsets in college football. Tonight we also have the NHL season preview for you coming up in our second hour, specifically at 10:15 Eastern, or the 75-minute mark of this podcast. We will be joined by Mike in North Jersey and Parcells Falling Out for that feature. And it'll be really fun. We'll preview every team in the NHL, all 30 of them, give you our division predictions, give you our season predictions, give you our playoff predictions. We'll tell you who we think is going to win the Cup and who we think is going to win the conferences in the East and in the West. So that's coming up in a little bit. But right now we start with football. And again, just an incredibly crazy week of upsets in college football. And I think, while it was not the biggest upset, the game I think everyone's talking about from college football last week was the Clemson win over Notre Dame, a dramatic victory for the Clemson Tigers in a game where they were winning the game, but they were close to blowing it, and they somehow held on. And after the game, Dabo Swinney, the longtime coach of the Clemson Tigers, he's been kicked around a lot because he would not be able to put away games like this. But he did it on this night, and he let everybody know it.
Rolling Stone gives Steve Jobs 4 stars.
And we'll get to that commentary in just a minute. I thought this was going to be... That's kind of annoying. I had this thing all queued up, and I got to wait this out now so we can hear the speech. But Dabo Swinney was asked by a reporter, I think it was Heather Cox, after the game. And this is what he had to say about his team's performance.
Do for your program.
Well, it makes us 4-0, and it keeps us on track for what we're trying to do, and that's, have a great season. Hey, hats off to Notre Dame. We had them down. They fought back. That's what great teams do. Well coached. But, man, I'm just so proud of our team. That's what it's all about. It ain't always perfect, but what I told them tonight was, listen, we give you scholarships. We give you stipends and meals and a place to live. We give you nice uniforms. I can't give you guts, and I can't give you heart. And tonight, hey, it was BYOG, bring your own guts. And they brought some guts and some heart, and they never quit to the last play. And thank you to the good Lord and my dad who was with me tonight.
Coach, on that final...
All right, that's the word from college football. Let's hit it.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
It is time for the Kids Club Picks, week number 6. After a tumultuous week in college football, Ron in New Jersey had a big week with the picks, and I say that with every bit of enthusiasm. He had a great week, 3-1 last week, including a split sweep in the college picks. His picks, by the way, in a very, very dicey weekend in pick games. He had Oregon laying the points, got that, and he also had... I'm trying to remember who we had what the other game was. Western Kentucky laying the points. He got that one too. So, big week. He was 3-1, and he wins the week for the Kids Club panelists. Andy in Seattle was in second place, 2-2 for the week. And Say Hello to Ottis went 1-3. I went 1-3. John in Connecticut, unfortunately, the Golden Sombrero went 0-4. But he's still doing pretty well overall for the standings, which are Dave in first place, 13-5. Ron in second, 11-6-1. Ottis is third, 10-7-1. John is in fourth at 10-8, and Andy just behind him, 9-8-1. So pretty good field. Still anybody's contest, and we now move into week number 6 of the picks. So very good to have 3 of our panelists on tonight. Oatman has a decent chance to join us as well later in the program, but we'll introduce these fellows one by one. We will go first with the winner of the week, Ron. Welcome to the program. How's it going tonight?
Good, Dave. How's everything?
Going pretty well. The temperatures are finally cooling down around here in California, but I think it's going to heat up again over the weekend, where we have just like 97 expected on Saturday. It's going to be nuts. Anyway, also joining us, Andy in Seattle. How's it going tonight, Andy?
Not too bad. Slightly irate, slightly happy. You should spend your whole podcast with the hockey on the Toronto Maple Leafs, though.
Oh, boy, the Leafs. What a mess that franchise is. We'll get into that in our second hour. Also joining us is John in Connecticut. John, how's it going tonight?
Good, Dave. Are you sure we don't have a woman on the broadcast tonight that we can claim that she doesn't know about sports?
Oh, God, what a farce. Was it Borden on that, too, in that criticism of Jessica Mendoza last night? That's retarded, if that's true. And I don't want to be mean, but that is unfortunate if they were jumping in on that party, because that was ridiculous. I wasn't on the board.
Yeah. No, I thought she was okay. I mean, it's the broadcast is what it is. I mean, she wasn't terrible.
I thought she was pretty good. I mean, Ron, you were talking.
Archer was a star. More Archer for everybody.
Archer was good too, though. So last night's wild card game is what everyone speaks of, and the Yankees and their tradition and their history, they're supposed to go to the postseason all the time, says Mike Francesa, but their postseason ends early on this year. They lose 3-0 to the Astros, and a certain Yankee fan thinks the Astros still aren't that good. I disagree with that. I think they're a great team. And Keuchel looked really good last night. I guess we can talk about that a little bit. Ron, did you get a chance to watch the game?
Oh yeah, I watched the whole thing. That was the most surprising thing going into that game, is how people were, overlooking Keuchel. Keuchel was a beast this year. I know short rest, but Jesus Christ, the Yankees has, played terrible the last month. I didn't really worry about that game, to be honest with you. But the way some people were talking, it was, they were the Astros should have just been happy that they got to that point. But they're not a bad team.
They aren't a bad team. I mean, they had their struggle. They nearly tanked the season, but they recovered in time. They were with about 2 weeks left. They turned it around, and they managed to win some more games, and they got the wild card spot. Very deserving entry to the postseason, in my opinion. I think that they were the better team going in, and they are the better team coming out as well. So let's go to Andy. Your thoughts about last night's AL wildcard game?
Yeah, Keuchel is the engine of that staff. The lineup is just filled with guys that hit home runs. They strike out a lot. They know that, though. And but for last night, they were able to lay off Tanaka's nibbling stuff, because usually they swing very loose, and first pitch that they like, they'll try to take a crack at it. But Tanaka was a nibbler, as he is, and they were laying off all that stuff that was going low. Some people think Tanaka was getting squeezed. You read that's a strike for Tanaka, or is that the strike for Keuchel? Why is there not a strike for Tanaka? But I'm sorry, Keuchel was commanding the zone and Tanaka wasn't. So that happens. And I was a clown that bought into the Yankee magic. Do it for CC. They don't lose. It's their birthright to win home games. And so, yeah, I'll eat crow for that. But, it was hopefully this Chicago-Pittsburgh game gets interesting, because I don't want to watch 2 eggs of these play-in games. That'd be bad for Clinton Hurd. 2 games in a row, and they're building that the massive eggs. Last year was worse, so Giants actually destroyed them. But the Yankees, the most Yankee fans will admit after the 7 stages of grief that the team, their fatal flaw was a limp offense. All season, and what happened? The limp offense showed up, and in May, in April, and June, when Betances was pitching every night, they were like, yeah, pitch him every night. He won't be overtired. He won't be overworked. Well, what happened? He was overworked. And what happened last night? He gave up a run. So, it's a microcosm of the entire season, if you ask me.
It's really true. A lot of the same flaws that we've noticed throughout the year, and Jerry was always consistent in pointing this out throughout the year. But oftentimes we think he's too negative. But he was right about some of those same points you mentioned, Andy. So, I don't think it's a real surprise to anybody except the biggest Mongos. So, the Astros advance, and now to John in Connecticut for any additional commentary on last night's wild card baseball game.
Yeah, reading stuff beforehand, you would have thought the Astros were like a 60-win team, and now the Yankees are going to be all gritty and gutty and get the victory. But I had looked at the stats, and they didn't hit Keuchel. They played him like 2 times in the regular season, and they couldn't touch him. So you really didn't expect much else, especially after how limp the Yankees' offense had been the last 2 weeks. So always good to get new teams too in the mix. This playoffs will be interesting. You got the Blue Jays, the Rangers kind of coming out of nowhere, and obviously the Royals continuing their magic from last year on the AL side, and then of course in the NL you have the Cubs. They're kind of the story that you want to see, and the Mets too. They might have some 1, 2, 3 magic for us. According to some Mets fans, they won't even get a runner on base. We'll see what happens on Friday night.
DFC 3 RBQs barbecue. Yeah, it was very down on the Mets, even as this morning. He even said, I think I saw a post where he said, even in my dreams the Mets don't win. It's like, my goodness, can we enjoy the game? Let's enjoy the game and just settle in. It's been the first time in a while the Mets have been in the postseason, so that'll be fun. And we're having a little bit, like you mentioned, it's a slow game right now, but the score of the NL game going on tonight is 3-0 Cubs, and Arrieta looks tremendous. Through the first at least 2.5 innings, he did not have a 2-ball count, so he is really rolling so far in the shutout performance this far. We will keep you up to date on that game. And the Pirates, well, this is going to be a sad ending for them if it ends right here, but the stats backed them up. They said that Garrett Cole was really good against the Cubs. The split something like 7-1 against the Cubs. But tonight it's not playing out that way, so we'll see if things come back. Remember, John Lester last year in the AL wildcard game was rolling through 4 innings. So the Royals had a big mountain to climb, but then they climbed it in dramatic fashion and beat the A's. Lester was on the A's last year and went on to the World Series. So it's not over till it's over, to quote the late Yogi Berra. So lots to come on that. Let's get to football now, everybody. Again, just a huge week of upsets in college football. UCLA was embarrassed by Arizona State, and I almost, you could sort of see it coming that they would have a struggle. Losing like that, I'm not quite so sure. Just losing and getting blown out in certain parts of the game, that was pretty rough. Andy, you called it with Alabama. They completely dismantled Georgia. That's not really a surprise so much. Just the level to which they lost was the surprise. It was just unbelievable. And just a series of upsets, and should be upsets, with Ohio State and Michigan State. They both should have lost their games. Especially Ohio State. Going on the road to Indiana, that team, it's just not I mean, they've had some good performances, but it's not a good team. It's a pretty embarrassing game. And anything else? Oh, yeah, Florida took over at Gainesville against Ole Miss. So there's a lot to cover. Let's just get to it one by one. Let's start with Ron. What did you make of all the chaos in college football in week number 5?
Well, yeah, it was certainly interesting. You had a lot of upsets, games that shouldn't, I guess, really be considered upsets. The Alabama game, we should have saw it coming a mile away. I think many of us did. Mark Richt once again proving that he can't be a big-time coach. And I thought Gary Danielson, when he was on with Mike last week, hit it on the button when he said, "If not now, when? If they're not going to take the step this year, then when?" And I think that's the truth. yeah, I think Rick he deserves that label as a big game choker, and so that was interesting. I thought the Notre Dame Clemson game was really interesting. Notre Dame had a chance to come back and win the game, so Dabo almost gave that one away. So I know he was entertaining afterwards, but if that game was another 2-3 minutes long, Clemson was probably losing. So let's pump the brakes a little bit there. But overall, it was another fun week.
Yeah, Dabo Swinney did everything he could to give away that game. Notre Dame's offense looked pretty pitiful. It was a very ugly finish to the game, and it is to be expected because of the weather that was going on that week. And thankfully, most of the Eastern Seaboard didn't get hit. Unfortunately, South Carolina was not on that list. They got hit pretty bad. It was the first storm in 1,000 years, worst storm in 1,000 years, and many casualties. I feel terrible for the people of South Carolina today, but it was their football team was able to pull through and get a win in Clemson. So that's one positive note
Not
from the
Columbia,
state.
though.
I know, they didn't cover. They did not cover the spread. They did not cover the spread. It's kind of a hunt. Yeah. So, Andy, let's get your thoughts about week number 5. A lot to talk about, so you have the floor.
Yeah, well, Ron just hit the nail on the head with Georgia, Alabama, and it was basically the people that wanted the circle of life, or whatever you want to call it, the poetic justice, where Alabama beat them up in 2008 and Georgia's going to return the favor in 15. Well, that didn't happen. In fact, Bama basically did what they did in 08. And that 08 team with Georgia had Matt Stafford, A.J. Green, and O'Shawn Marino, and Alabama just destroyed them. And then it was just the mirror image on Saturday, especially at halftime. You never say go to the window, but that game was over. And so now all the SEC Mongos can say Alabama's back, because they get a lot of cachet for having one loss because they're Alabama, where some of these other Pac-12 schools that have one loss, they still have to somewhat earn it for whether you agree with it or not. That's just the way it is. It's the perception scenario. So yes, UCLA has some work to do now. Stanford has a lot of work to do, although they've been playing better after that Northwestern bunk. USC has a lot of work to do. That USC Notre Dame game might bring one of those schools, back into the picture. What else? I want to talk quickly about TCU just destroying Charlie Strong. Poor Charlie Strong, 50-7. And borrowing from what other people have said, how TCU should be a candidate to go in that Big 12, but a lot of the Texas schools they're sticking up their noses with the foo-foo scenario where, we're better than you guys. You don't deserve to be in our conference. Well, Gary Patterson basically was like Bizarro Goldilocks with the three little bears, and he pissed where Texas slept, and he shit where Texas eats, and he just embarrassed them from start to finish. And enter in Bob Stoops to come in. I don't know what I think Oklahoma should cover, because Texas is just, they are the college football equivalent of Philbin at this point. Put them out to pasture, but who knows what Stoops might do. But that's just embarrassing what's going down there in Austin, Texas. And Florida, congratulations to them. They might have like 48 hours left of their magic, because Missouri, I don't know who's going to play for Missouri, their starting quarterback or not, but Florida's riding a little bit of a momentum bubble, and they have Butch Jones to thank, because that offense as of 3 weeks ago was very plodding and inefficient, and now that quarterback's got confidence of Kobe Bryant in his prime, where everything he does just turns to gold. So it's still early. It's week 6 of the college season. There's a lot of storylines that have yet to really even begin.
Yeah, that was a huge. That's probably the biggest performance of Florida's offense in maybe 2 years. There are 4 touchdown passes in the first half, at least 4. I thought I saw 4, and it was just incredible. But you mentioned it also. That could be short-lived glory if they lose to Missouri, and it could very well happen the way that Missouri plays defense. So let's go to John in Connecticut and get your feelings of Week 6 or Week 5. Anything to add to what's been said?
Yeah, just a couple things to note. Yeah, that Florida game was crazy. Ole Miss has, for all the talent they have a habit of kind of laying eggs like this. You remember the bowl game against TCU? They lost like 45-3. Their previous loss before that, during the regular season, it's when Treadwell broke his leg. I forget what game that was. They got blown out in that game. And here against Florida, a huge blowout. So kind of got to wonder about Hugh Freeze sometimes in some of these games. It's like the Dabo Sweeney of the SEC. You look pretty dominant, and then you lose to a team like Florida, who I don't think they're that great still, but a very nice win for them. I was going to mention Texas, but Andy touched on that. I don't feel like Charlie Strong is long for Austin. I think at the end of the season they could be making a change there. Unfortunately for him, I always had the feeling that unless it was just a complete disaster, a coach at a major program like that should get 3 or 4 years, get his recruiting cycle in there. But it's not looking good for him. Let's see what else here. The battle of the Mongo coaches. Of course, Butch Jones gets a 14-point lead 2 minutes in, and they blow the game once again. What else is new? And then Tennessee is playing Georgia this week, so that's a really interesting game. Which coach is going to screw up more? You actually kind of get the feeling that Georgia will rebound against Tennessee this week. It's not looking good for Butch Jones either. One other kind of Mongo coaching moment, one of the hottest games of the week, Illinois and Nebraska. If you don't know the story about this game, Nebraska was up 13-7 with like 1 minute and 10 seconds left. It's third down. They have the ball. Illinois has no timeouts. So you figure you run, you punt. Illinois has, 20 seconds left, and the game's over. Instead, Mike Riley throws a pass on third down. It's incomplete. Of course, they punt to Illinois, and Illinois goes right down the field and wins the game with a touchdown, 14-13. So he might not make it out of this year because they're 2-3 and they're going nowhere. We kind of mentioned it in our preview show, but I have to say that I called it on that one. Nebraska is Mike Riley is just a terrible hire. Pretty much the only thing I got right last week, and my picks were just dreadful. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Thinking Appalachian State minus 25. I should have looked at that weather forecast. But in any event, I was also right about the Duke BC game. 9-7. I think it's set back football about 1,000 years. Was Rutgers and Princeton playing in the first college? I think they scored more than they did on Saturday. But in any event, a fun week, and we'll keep it going here for. Can't believe it's week 6. The season's just about half over.
Yeah, it's blazing fast, John. It really is. Yeah, I was very happy for that under pick. That was really well done. I mean, 9-7. That's a baseball score. That's pretty low. So on Texas, I think I wanted to give Charlie Strong as much credit, as much time, as much of the benefit of the doubt as he could. But they made no progress in these 2 years that he's been on the team. The team just looks worse and worse offensively every single week. This is pretty bad. So remember when that Oklahoma-Texas game, the Red River rivalry, used to be a big game? Not even close to that right now. These two teams are terrible right now. I mean, maybe Oklahoma's okay, but they're given 17, so I doubt there's going to be much going on. Now let's get to the picks.
Wait, does Oklahoma have a loss yet?
I'm trying to... Yeah, did they lose to whom?
No, they
don't? No loss.
I think Herb Street had Oklahoma as like one of his playoff teams, or right up there. So sooner or later, you're going to hear about them being like, they can dance. They'll probably play Baylor or TCU eventually, and then all of us can against Duke. So good things come. Just wait.
Yeah, well, oh man, imagine him back in the playoff again. Oh man, that's gonna be fun, but fun to bet against that. Anyway, that's good insight by you, Andy. Good pickup by everyone. Man should join us in a few minutes, but now let's get to the picks. So, Ron, you have the floor. You teased a big lock of the week. So, Ron, with 2 picks, I'm looking forward to this one. It is now your turn to lead us off for the first time this year for the Kids Club College Picks week number 6. Ron, it's all yours.
Wow, it feels good. Let me start with my second game. And yeah, I've been trying to take a team from the mid majors, or whatever they're called, every week. So I'm going to stick with that this week, and I'm going to take Bowling Green -13 against UMass. UMass, we all thought they were going to be improved this year. They have played well in most of their games. But Bowling Green's on a roll recently. Matt Johnson has been on fire. He's a must-play in Fan Duel. He's putting up 400 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns every week. That offense is rolling. So the first game I like is Bowling Green -13 at home. I think they're at home against UMass.
They are, yep.
But okay, so -13 at home. I'll take Bowling Green. And my second pick, Dave, I don't know if you own a home, but if you do, use it as collateral. If you own an automobile, you could put that up. If you know anybody who owns land, tell them, please put it on this game because you will not be disappointed. And that would be the Michigan State Spartans -14 over the State University of New Jersey, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. If the odds were reversed and it was -41, I would honestly think hard about still picking Michigan State. But as it is, I don't know. Is Connor Cook dead? Did something happen to D'Antonio? Why is the line that low? I can't figure it out, but I will gladly take that game against a terrible Rutgers team who barely beat Kansas, which is the equivalent of a high school football team a couple weeks ago. Saturday night in Piscataway on the Big Ten Network. You got to go Michigan State -14. I think we should just all chalk that up as one and just pick one game this week because it's an automatic W.
A quintuple checker on a checker. That'd be fun. All right, great.
If it isn't, it should be.
Yeah, it's certainly strong consideration for that. It may happen. Thank you for the picks, Ron. That line started at Michigan State -17, if I'm looking at it correctly. It went down to 16, it went down to 15. It is now down to 14. That is a huge, huge bonus for anyone who is looking forward to partaking in that action. So, good luck to your picks, Ron. Well done last week. Let's hope for more of the same this week. Now to Andy in Seattle. You were 2-2 last week, and again, I think your finest moment, I imagine you would agree, was taking Alabama in that game against Georgia. So now let's see what the follow-up is for week number 6. Andy, it is now your turn. Kids Club Picks College Week 6.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I feel like I take Alabama almost every week, and I have them. I wrote them down. I love Ron's Bowling Green pick. UMass in a track meet is not conducive to what they do. I wrote Oklahoma down. I wrote West Virginia down. I wrote West Kentucky down. I loved his Western Kentucky pick last week, too. But I can't be a Mike 44. You have to actually pick 2 of these games and talk about them. So we will lay off all those teams that I just mentioned. And game number 1, we will fall into this potential trap. Take the team that we kill him. We just did. We will again. We will take Mark Richt. We will take Georgia at Tennessee. They're giving 3. Tennessee I think they're already 0-2 in the SEC, and Georgia can still kind of do something in the SEC East because it's the SEC East, and they do play Florida, and they will get as good a chance as anybody in the East to go to Atlanta in the SEC Conference Championship game. So the first thing they need to do is dust themselves off and get their asses over to Knoxville, Tennessee, and do what they need to do and beat up a Tennessee team that has been LOL all season long. Georgia, they should be able to run the ball on Tennessee, and Grayson Lambert should have a better game. Tennessee's offense is not very good, in my opinion. The quarterback, the one thing you have to worry about with Tennessee's offense is the quarterback's legs. He's fast.
Andy, hello? Do we have you? Quarterback's legs fat. And so let's see if we get him back at some point. I'm not... Call dropped. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get our friend Andy back on the air in just a moment. So, the first pick is pretty solid out of the box for Andy in Seattle, so we'll see if we can get him worked out. I'll just, how do you take this out of commission? Ooh, shoot. Ooh. Okay. We'll just have to wait for Andy to return to us in a moment. So, to the rest of you, let's carry on. We'll get the rest of Andy's pick in just a bit, but I think to carry on, it will be up to me, Dave in the City, because I am next on the queue. Well, hang on. Let me just go put him back on right here. One sec. I'll just go get him back. Okay, just one sec. We'll get Andy back. John and Ron. I mean, it's Ron. You're getting some great picks. I love the pick of Bowling Green as well. That's a pretty nice spot. And they're at home. It's really fun watching them. They don't often get on TV. I've been watching them a lot on.
Hey, so where did I lose you? Fuck this phone.
All right, so Andy, we'll go ahead and finish off the picks. So all yours, and sorry about the phone, man.
When did I get lost?
It was you were just finishing up with the Georgia pick. You talked about how the Tennessee quarterback's legs were fat.
No, he's got fast legs.
Oh, fast legs. Fast legs. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, I think Georgia will find some comfort. Kind of like they just need to pound somebody after getting their ass kicked, and I think Tennessee will be the right team to provide the relief that they need. Game number 2, I was telling people that it's hard. I've just been avoiding dogs like the plague. The few dogs I've taken haven't turned out so well. UConn last week, hypothetically, but we'll fall into this trap. We're gonna take Cal getting 7 at Utah. It's the game day location. Doesn't start till 10 p.m. on the East Coast. So when Mike talks about Utah in a couple of weeks, he'll be like, Mike never watched Utah before. He can't name 2 players on their team. He could probably name the coach and the running back though. And Cal is undefeated. Utah is undefeated. 23-5 in the ranking. This is a test for Cal. They don't play great defense, as evidenced by last week's game against Washington State. They got a quarterback who's projected to go very high in the NFL draft next year. Even though he's only a junior, everyone thinks he's going to go pro. Is a well-balanced team. I think everyone on this program has seen a lot of Utah going back to last year, and they play really good defense. So there might not be that many points scored for your typical Pac-12 game, but Cal is getting 7, and that gives Goff a little bit of a backdoor opportunity if it were to be a 2-possession game late in the fourth quarter. And I just feel like I think Utah will win ultimately. I think Cal keeps it close. And a lot of people are probably like, why is Utah number 5 in the country? And so I think people will get a chance to see Utah for the first time ever on Saturday night, because the average Joe probably had no clue that Utah's in the Pac-12 at this point, but Cal has been in the Pac-12 for quite some time.
Since the beginning.
And it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be really a good game, and just give me Cal getting 7. Hope they keep it close.
Cal is a fun team to watch, but you mentioned it with the defense. But this is also the best quarterback that Utah has played by a wide margin so far this year. Utah has played Michigan. They played, let's see, who else did they play? They played a couple other teams, but I was looking at the schedule, and this is definitely the biggest challenge so far for the Utah defense, which is indeed tough and rugged. So I look forward to that game. A lot of times when they play on Saturday night, it's a fun time. I remember the SC was over there playing against Utah. That was a tight game. So we anticipate more of the same coming up on ESPN. I think it's on ESPN. Now to Dave's picks. That's me. Let us go and try to rebound from a 1-3 week. Here is what I have for you, week number 6 in the Kids Club. There are 2 teams that are very popular amongst the Kids Club panelists for picking games. This week, I'm going to take both of them. We start in an early game, Western Kentucky and a Heisman hopeful Brandon Doughty. Picking up where he left off last year, if you saw him against Rice, he was just hauling the ball up and down the field. Brown was right on top of this one. He picked Western Kentucky, and they rolled to a dominant victory at Rice. This week they're at home, and they play Middle Tennessee State. Not a good team, but I will say that Middle Tennessee State seems to have their moments with the defense. But nevertheless, I just think that this is way too much offensive talent between the experience at receiver and Doughty. It's just going to be a runaway, so I will take Western Kentucky minus 8.5 at home against Middle Tennessee State. Game number 2, it's a checker on a checker. I am taking Bowling Green, as Ron did, minus 13 against UMass. One thing I'm going to add about UMass is that UMass has apparently some injuries in the defensive side of the ball, some that they're still trying to nurse. Some guys are coming back. That's what I understand as of the moment. And on a separate note from Bowling Green, how about Dino Babbers rescuing a woman from a car wreck, and his trainer came in and helped along as well. What a moment for Dino Babbers. I mean, coaching a good team, having a lot of fun with offense, and being a community hero. That is sweet. So again, Bowling Green giving 13 to UMass, and Western Kentucky giving 8.5 at home against Middle Tennessee State. Week 6, college picks. Now we switch to John in Connecticut to give us his picks for week number 6 in college. And again, last week was a really tough week to give picks. It was just a lot of tough conference matchups, so you really could have picked this a lot of different ways. So let's see what we have for this week 6. John, you now have the floor. Week 6 college.
Yeah, I went from second place to almost the basement. Everyone's been doing so well. We'll try to get it turned around this week. Feel better about my games, but you never know what can happen. We'll start. I mentioned this game earlier. We'll go with the home dog, Missouri, getting 5.5 against Florida. It's your typical letdown game. If you look at this line before the season, I bet Missouri would have been a 3 or a 4-point favorite. Now you're telling me that Florida is almost 10 points better on a neutral field. I'm not buying it. I think this is just your classic overreaction game from the Ole Miss game last week. I don't think Florida is that good. They're certainly a much improved team with Mackle and whatnot, but I don't think they're the number 11 team in the country, and I think they're in for a letdown spot here. I saw Missouri play my UConn Huskies in a hideously played game. Pretty good defensive battle, but Missouri does have a very good defense. It's a primetime game. I think they keep it close. They may even pull that right upset. I think it's actually a plus bet. Matty Mock is not playing. He's been very inconsistent this year. And this freshman, Drew Lock, looks like he's got a lot of potential. So we'll go with Missouri plus 5, and I'll even call for the outright upset. 20-17, Missouri will call it. So give me Missouri plus 5 for the first game. For game 2, let me just preface this by saying I will not watch a single snap of this debacle of a game. However, when it comes to making a pick, I think you got to go with this one. I'm going to go with Wake Forest getting 7.5 at Boston College. This is just the worst game imaginable. But like last week, Duke and BC, it was 9-7. I anticipate the same kind of thing here. The over/under is 36.5. Boston College can't score. Their coach is a big ooga booga type. Oh, we're going to run the ball and play defense. You can just see him, on the sideline, his ears steaming if they throw a forward pass, more than 30 yards down the field. So their team is just painful to watch. I honestly can't say I know much about Wake Forest football this year, which I guess is a good thing. I know they had a freshman quarterback last year, John Wolford. I think he might have been hurt this year. In any event, it doesn't matter. This game is going to be like 13-10 or something. How can anyone lay 7.5 points with Boston College who can't score? It's just maybe I'm missing something here. So give me the Demon Deacons in just an ugly, ugly game plus 7.5. So 2 dogs in the college scenario, Missouri plus 5.5, and Wake Forest plus 7.5.
Very well done. Thank you very much, John. So that will do it for picks. I would have Otis's picks to share with you, but I don't think he's given them to me yet. So either Tommy will call in, Oatman will call in, or we'll get them on Twitter. So stay tuned for that. If we don't get them tonight, we can add them to the website, www.deadcow.com. So we'll get those picks up one way or another on the program. Let's conclude with a look at this week's games. Andy teased one of them, and it looks like a pretty good matchup. Cal versus Utah. So we already know what Andy thinks about the game. He thinks Cal will keep it close. Let's go to the rest of you. Ron, and I'll get it to Andy as well. But Ron, your look at Cal versus Utah. A very good test for both teams. How do you see it?
Well, I love watching Cal play this year. I think I'm really sold on Jared Goff as a legitimate NFL quarterback. So I've been keeping my eye on that team this year, and they certainly have a high-powered offense, but it's going to be a tough spot on the road against Utah. Utah has a stacked defense. They have probably one of the best running backs in the country outside of Fournette in Devin Booker. And they have, Utah has what Utah always has, which is that quarterback who's sneaky fast and gets those sneaky first downs on those 3rd and shorts and 3rd and 5s and moves the chains, and the defense holds them down. So I think it's going to be a close game. I like Utah, but I wouldn't put it past Cal to cover the spread, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. So we're basically agreeing with Andy on this, because I was looking at that. I thought, yeah, okay, it's 7. If it was like 8, I would probably have used that as a podcast pick, because it was definitely that close, to that tasty. So Andy's really on point with this. Andy, as far as who's going to win the game, you mentioned that Utah will win it. Any other thoughts you had on Cal-Utah?
None on Cal-Utah. I'm looking forward to watching the game, though. Last Saturday, I had to do other stuff, and I was not able to watch any evening college pigskin, and was angry. It's such a first world problem. Find something better to do.
Yeah, it'll be good to check that one out. It's nice that we get that nice time slot too. I mean, for the two of us out west at 7:00 local, so it'll be a good game. I look forward to that. Let's see, John, Cal, Utah. How do you see it? Who do you think's going to win?
Yeah, you got to like Utah at home in this one. I think this is since Sonny Dykes has got to Cal, they kind of floundered. This is like their first real good season when they're breaking out, and Goff has always been talented. He really didn't have the team around him the first couple of years, but this is their really first big road test, like when they're a nationally ranked team. So I think there's definitely some pressure on them. Utah, you really can't say they've been in kind of this situation either, but they've been a pretty good team. At least they haven't been a Pac-12 South division winner, but they've always been tough at home. So they're more accustomed to playing in this type of game. So I definitely think they have that advantage. They have the home crowd, obviously. That's a tough stadium to play in. I'd have to go with Utah, but I kind of like Andy's scenario about a backdoor situation where, Utah is up like 31-17 or something in the fourth, and Cal gets a late touchdown. So I could definitely see that staying within a number, but I do think Utah will win this game.
Very well done, everybody. That's going to be one of the featured games. The 5 o'clock game, or the 8 o'clock game out east, meaning the Saturday night football game, which is effectively the game of the week from ABC, is Miami versus Florida State. And so that really just tells you it's a down week in college football, because I'm just not that interested in that matchup. Even though Florida State's undefeated, there is no perception that they are going to be a playoff contender. So I'm not convinced. I mean, Everett Golson could turn the ball over at any moment still, even after all these years. So I'm not into it. If any of you disagree, feel free to share. But the other game I want to look at this week, as I shall denote, the Cubs have added a run on Dexter Fowler's home run. It is now 4-0 Cubs as we continue in the NL wildcard game. What inning are we in? I think we're in the 6th inning. So the other game I want to take a look at this week was TCU, and as we mentioned, they're riding high, looking good offensively, against Kansas State. This will be a fun Big 12 matchup. So let's start with Ron. TCU K-State, does this have sneaky potential?
That was one of the games on my radar to pick this week. I like TCU a lot in this game, to be honest with you. I think last week when they get rolling, they're tough to stop. And I think Texas Tech caught them off guard a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think Gary Patterson's going to allow that to happen anymore. I think they're going to, roll through the rest of the schedule until they meet Oklahoma and Baylor. But Kansas State has always overachieved under Bill Snyder, and they're not a terrible team, but I think TCU's offense is just going to be too much for them to handle.
All right, so Ron's big on TCU. Andy, what do you think of TCU against Kansas State?
Yeah, I think same narrative as Ron. I don't see how Kansas State keeps it close this time around, although much respect to them. They usually do cover spreads. Even going back to Colin Klein, and Snyder is one of the few Big 12 coaches that has Nugan between his ears. And the thing is, Kansas State, they've got some serious quarterback depth problem. I think they might be on their third or fourth quarterback at this point. I'm not sure to be exact, but their starter is gone, and I think they're on their third string or something like that, their emergency quarterback. So that's some issues. But the other big team in the Big 12, Baylor, and that, I don't know if you guys saw that line. They're giving I think it's 41 or 44 to Kansas. That will be a fun game just to pay attention to see how long it takes for them to get to that number, because Bryles gives 0 Fs, and he will try with all his might to get that number covered.
I like that. I like the spirit there. That sounds like fun. Oh, I'll enjoy whenever there's a chance for an entirely large point spread to be covered. That will be wild, to say the least. So, John, let's go back to TCU Kansas State. Is there potential with this game, or will TCU have a good handle on it? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if this was Kansas State last year, I'd give them a pretty good chance. But they, Jake Waters and Tyler Lockett are gone. And Andy is right. I saw that they're down to their 5th or 4th string quarterback, who was playing wide receiver at Kansas State, but he was a high school quarterback. And he actually had a pretty good game the other day against Oklahoma State. They almost won that game. But yeah, TCU is just way too much, I think, this year for Kansas State. And I agree with him on that. I almost made Baylor a pick because, our Parcells was going to try to run up the score in that game. They could have that spread covered by halftime. I don't think I've ever seen a team giving that many points on the road in a conference game. They're getting 35 points on the road. That's just think about it. I mean, both of those teams are considered Division I football teams, and the difference between them couldn't be greater. I mean, they're giving 45 on the road. That's unbelievable. You just have to shake your head at it.
I have to wonder if Kansas is even going to be an FBS team anymore after this. This is just embarrassing. They're not even competitive in these games anymore, except against Rutgers, I suppose. But it does seem like you wonder whether they're going to do something, because I think Villanova, they demoted them to FCS, and so I'm wondering if that's going to happen with Kansas at some point. Maybe we'll speculate on that later. But that's going to wrap.
70's the new 50. Before Spurrier would Ron's comparing him to the new Spurrier. Spurrier would love to hang 50 on guys. Bryles goes for 70. It's great.
He really does. That was sort of the benchmark of Baylor over the last couple years, no doubt. So that wraps it up for college football this week. Good luck to all the picks once again. We now segue to NFL. And as we get into NFL coverage, I'll make a quick note about the Fan Duel DraftKings scandal. People from one of the two groups, I forget which one it was, started using inside information to put bets on the other site. I mean, if this proves out to be true, that's a major, major infraction. And, it definitely puts the validity of these sites into question. But for the moment, it's still going, and you still see the commercials, so that's that for the single-week fantasy. And many of our panelists partake in the Fan Duel or DraftKings, so lots of fun there. The big story from last week was an illegal batted ball play at the end of the Monday Night Football game between the Seahawks at home against the Detroit Lions. Calvin Johnson was reaching out to go to the goal line to score. First of all, should he have done that? Should he have just, because they were guaranteed a field goal, they could have at least tied the game if Calvin Johnson wasn't trying so hard for the end zone. But, depending on who you ask, maybe it is the right thing to go for it. You're on the road. I mean, when are you going to get in a shot at the end zone? But it got fumbled, and then KJ Green, or whatever his name was, batted the ball forward, which you don't usually see it in the end zone. Usually they bat it backwards when you're on the other end. But he batted it forward, which is illegal. But it was such a rarely used rule, nobody really made a note of it. Monday Night Football didn't even bring it up till after the game. But, in fact, the refs missed it. And the NFL, during the same night, admitted that they made a mistake, so you know that they really blew it when that happened. Well, the outcome of that is that Detroit did not get a chance to score a touchdown. They should have had the ball first and goal from inside the one with about a minute and a half to go. Doesn't mean that they'd win the game, because that still gives them the Seattle time to win. But nevertheless, it gives Seattle goes on to win the game. Quite a kerfuffle between those two teams and between NFL fans and the referees and officials. So, in addition to that, Dolphins coach Joe Philbin was fired almost immediately after he got bounced by the Jets in London in an early Sunday game. And Jay Cutler and Drew Brees returned to their respective teams, and they both get wins, one in overtime, one really close against the Raiders in Chicago. So that's the story. Cardinals are no longer undefeated, and Andrew Luck, thankfully not dislocated shoulder, so he will start tomorrow. That's what's happening in the NFL. Now let's get everybody else's thoughts about Week 1. Ron, you're first with the Week 1. Did I say Week 1? With Week 4 NFL recap. Ron, share what you thought of last week's action.
Yeah, well, I was very happy with the Jet game result. I'm a little disappointed that Philbin got fired. Hello.
The boat's here. I'm sorry.
You're right there? Because it's pretty easy to see him lose the rest of the year with the Dolphins. So I'm a little disappointed he got fired. Another game that I had my eye on last week was the Bills Giants game, which was a total farce. Where the Bills committed 21 penalties, numerous personal fouls. They had guys trying to literally kill Giants after the play. Typical Rex Ryan coach team. No discipline, no smarts to them, no intelligence. Tom Coughlin treats Rex Ryan like his personal bitch, and good for him. Good for the New York Football Giants. That was definitely an interesting game to watch, and yeah, I mean the Monday night game with that play, and it's almost like it's cliche now, right? Where the Seahawks get a call like that, and a call like that goes against the Lions, similar to that play a couple years ago where Calvin Johnson
Same
caught
guy.
that touchdown pass that they said wasn't a touchdown pass.
Oh man.
But that's why you can't really kill the Seahawks because not every game is like that, and they turn those plays into opportunities, and they succeed when you least expect them to. So I actually put the blame on Caldwell. Why wasn't Caldwell why wasn't he going nuts on the sideline or trying to challenge that call, or anybody who knew the rule on that sidelines? How come they weren't up in arms?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it didn't seem like anybody really caught on to it. That's what was so surprising about it. Like, to really put it in perspective, if it was Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth calling the same game, they would have caught it. Those guys are so anal on the rules of the game. I bet you they would have picked up on that right away. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do think so. But you have Tirico and Blockhead Gruden, talking about how great, KJ Wright is. And, yeah, I'm not going to kill him, but I could have definitely seen a different scenario with Mr. I Hate the Giants, Collinsworth,
Yep, the one and
calling
only.
that like it is. Yep.
He's a good, but look, he talks too much, but he is a good analyst. So whether he hates the Giants or not, I give him all the credit in the world. Collinsworth's done a pretty good job since taking over for Madden in the Sunday Night Football booth. An update from baseball. In the bottom of the sixth inning, the bases were loaded with one out, and what do the Pirates do? They ground into a double play, so the score remains 4-0 in the Steel City. So we continue with our Kids Club picks and the NFL features. Andy in Seattle, your thoughts about Week 4? The Patriots had the week off, so not a lot to worry about there. Your thoughts about what happened in this week's action?
Yeah, just you touched on that Seattle ending. Here's what I'll say about that. No one even talks about Cam Chancellor. I don't think 31 of the other safeties in the league makes that play. So no one talks about that great play anymore because it's overshadowed by the ref's miscue. Having said that, the ball, I know KJ Wright shouldn't have touched the ball, but everyone after was like, I would have done it, 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 I would have done it. So everyone was in the same boat. Also, the ball was going to go out of bounds on its own. There wasn't any Detroit guys really close. Now, the rule was the rule, and there was a penalty, but it's just, there was a big loaf, and they loafed the ball, and it was kind of like the rule versus the mistake, and it's not going to be the last time the refs make a boo-boo like that. What else is going on? Everyone's talking about the kickers and how bad they are, and it's I don't know if it's contagious. Obviously, it's not contagious. One kick has nothing to do with the other. The Saints kicker didn't miss his potential game-winning kick on Sunday night because Josh Scobie's an epic turd, but it was just, symmetry. The week started last week with Josh Scobie being an absolute fool on CBS, you piece of crap, and Tomlin and the play calling, and Todd Haley and Vic. Give me a break! Let the Ravens off the hook. But that started just all these kickers missing extra points and stuff. And, yeah, so I self-rule now. Do not touch these Thursday night games because you are going to just watch, poo on poo. And that Houston-Tennessee game tomorrow, I'm sorry. I'll watch President's Cup or freaking USC UW instead. But the witching hours for both, the first slate of games and then the second wave of games were really good. You usually don't see a lot of, for us, Dave, the 1 o'clock games,
right,
125 games. There's like maybe 3 games. At the end of the year when everyone's got the buys out of the way, there's a lot more. But, a lot of the games, they're not too compelling. But last week you had Green Bay did what they needed to do, but you had Arizona, St. Louis was exciting. The Denver game was exciting. And there was one other game that was exciting that I can't remember. But it was just the witching hours were very witchy this past weekend. Not saying we were on the right side of all the witchy, but it was, if you want to watch drama, if you're not a gambler, you just watch for the pure joy of entertainment. You definitely were entertained last week in some ways, more, in different ways.
Yeah, a very rare late-game witching hour. It's, as Andy broke that down very nicely. It was really fun. That was actually my dad's introduction to the Red Zone channel. He asked me to add it to his cable system when I was at his house last weekend, so I went ahead and we ordered it together, and he got to enjoy all of those finishes. The Denver game was crazy, too. I mean, the Vikings were right on the door trying to take the lead, and they just didn't have enough. They lost by 3 points, but you get the picture that Peyton Manning is very human this year. So there is that. But it was a good game. It was a really good game, and certainly a lot of big players on both sides from both teams, so it was really fun. And what else? The Chargers game. The Browns.
Yeah, the Chargers game, that was...
Oof. Yeah, the Browns pretty much just chargered the game because the Browns, I think, forced San Diego to miss a field. San Diego missed a field goal, but then the Browns were offside, and they got another chance at it. And of course, San Diego hit the field goal that time to win the game in regulation. So after all that, not for the Cleveland Browns, and so Andy, you said it. Even after all this time and all the hype, the Browns need to actually prove they're good before we can buy into them. Really that simple. Okay, so now Old Man has joined us on the program, but as we usher him into the show with us, let's get to John in Connecticut for his Week 4 NFL thoughts. And yeah, the Packers had a good win last week, so it could have had the letdown, didn't happen, and so good times for Green Bay.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at how well their defense played. Kaepernick usually has their number, but Dom Capers actually came up with a halfway decent scheme. And they had 7 sacks, and Rodgers wasn't excellent, but he didn't have to be. He just had to be efficient, not turn the ball over, keep the running game going, and they had a good win. So onward we go, and they'll play the Rams this Sunday. As for the rest of the week's action, yeah, I mean, Ron nailed it with the Bills and the Giants. So I'm watching, after the Sunday night game ended, I flipped over to the NFL Network for NFL Game Day. They had the highlight show. And the first thing they show is the Giants and the Bills. And then they go to Rex's press conference, and he's like, they're asking him about the penalties. He's like, well, I mean, one thing I can tell you, our guys played hard. They played hard, I can tell you that. And we're going to get this fixed, and I can tell you that they played hard. And she's like, dude, you just had 21 goddamn penalties for 150 yards. Are you not embarrassed by that or something? I mean, so from now on, my strategy when it comes to the Bills is every time they have a big win, go against them next week because they're going to be so high on themselves and be undisciplined, and so that's going to be my strategy now going on from the Bills. So if they beat the Titans this week, you go against them in week 6 or whatever. But as for the rest of the games, the Sunday night game, I ended up betting the Saints hypothetically, and even in a win, they angered me. Because seriously, how do you let Brendan Whedon go 90 yards in 2 minutes to tie the game? There's no Des Bryant, and because what a pathetic team that the Saints are. Even in a win, I was pissed off watching that game. So, really no other thoughts. So you guys covered the Monday night game well. I kind of thought that was batting the ball when I first saw it, but I kind of agree with what Andy said as well, that there's literally no Lions player within 15 yards. So it really wouldn't have mattered if he did that or not. I think that the ref kind of used that as his discretion. But in any event, another crazy week in the league. And I said that underdogs would cover, and of course they did. And of course we all took favorites. So I guess that kind of explains why we had a rough week here with the picks.
Yeah, you had that right. We all had the right idea taking underdogs last weekend, but it's just that we didn't pick the right teams. It was really that close. I mean, I was like, okay, I got to get 2 underdogs in the NFL, and I basically missed on both of them. So I mean, Oakland was. I think I had Oakland as one of. No. Let me go back. See what my picks actually were. I had the Chiefs. Oh, jeez, the Chiefs. Okay, let me just tell you a little bit about the Chiefs. You want to know why they don't ever make it past the second round of the playoffs? Because of stupid shit like this. They're down by 15 points or 16 points They kick a field goal. It's the fourth quarter. Andy Reid, do you have any interest in winning games whatsoever? What a joke. He's finally got Jeremy Maclin rolling, and then instead of building on top of that, you settle for fucking field goals. It just got me so upset watching that. It's like, yeah, that kind of wimpy play is why you never go anywhere in the playoffs, at least outside of that one year where the Eagles and Donovan McNabb went to the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Anyway, enough of that. We had a fracas in Pittsburgh. Jake Arrieta was plunked by what looks like a Pittsburgh pitcher. I'm trying to see if it was Cole or a reliever. It looks like it was a reliever. Both benches empty. They were really jawing at each other, so it's a bit of a fracas over there in Pittsburgh right now in the NL wildcard game. As we get to that, let's say hello to Ottis. Oh, man, welcome to the show. How's it going tonight?
It's been better. Sorry I'm joining you guys late. I had a soccer game, and now I've got my ankle iced up because I turned it, and I just tried to limp from my room to the couch so I could see what's going on in this baseball game that you're telling me about. But hockey's back, baseball playoffs, football, everything's going on right now, so I'm not going to complain too much about anything.
Well, Phil, I hope to get well soon, ankle of Oatman. We have a lot to catch up on, so Otis, if you want to take a moment, let's get your college picks for week number 6. Do you have those on hand for us?
Yeah, I got them here.
Right.
I'm not going to provide you with much analysis because I know that, Dave, whenever you review our picks from last week and any of us have down weeks, you like to paint a rosy picture and tell us that it was a good pick and it just didn't work out, but you really had your mind in the right place. It this happened and everything kind of just kind of fell short a little bit for you. Don't say that to me this week because my picks were atrocious last week. They were really bad. I didn't even come close on most of them. So I don't want to hear that they were good picks, and we'll move on. We'll move on from there. My one pick that did win was LSU. Not LSU, Alabama. I'm all over the place. Was Alabama, and I am, for my first pick, going to take the team that Alabama beat, and I'm going to take Georgia. I think the line I have is -3.5.
We'll give you -3.
Tennessee, -3. Is that someone else's action there? Do they have Tennessee?
It's checker on a checker with Andy, so...
Oh, all right.
Yep.
There we go. That makes me feel a little bit better. So that's going to be my first game. I don't have much analysis for you, and I know we're kind of running up against things here, so I'll just go through. For my second pick, it's a team I always like, a team that won last week, and you think that maybe they can have a little letdown, but I'm still going to bet them anyway. I'm going to take Clemson -7 at home against Georgia Tech. I think where there is a chance for a letdown, Clemson knows this team well, and I think that they'll be ready to go. And last week was such a weird game in that, like, almost monsoon against Notre Dame. So better conditions maybe, and hopefully they can put up we'll take a 10-point win against Georgia Tech. So that's my second pick.
All right, thank you very much for the pick, Soapman. I was wondering if someone was going to take that game. I was curious as to whether one would see some letdown potential, just like you said, with Clemson after such a dramatic win. And we played Dabo Swinney's "Bring Your Own Gut" speech to start the show, and after all that, I mean, what's the follow-up? It's just going to be interesting. But Georgia Tech looks a little lost as well. That's the thing. They just don't look like them. They just don't look good. It's just as simple as that. So thank you for the college picks. Let's go back to the NFL. And now we begin our NFL picks, and we begin with our leader from last week, Ron in New Jersey. It is now your pitch.
All right, thanks, Dave. I'll make this quick. I know we're up against it. First game, I'm going to stick with the Green Bay Checkers, -9 at home against the St. Louis Rams. I'll ride the Packers while they're hot. They had kind of an off week last week and still beat the 49ers by 14. We've all discussed how Jeff Fisher's an overrated coach. St. Louis doesn't scare me as an offense, even though Todd Gurley came on a little bit. So I'll take Green Bay to cover -9. And the second game, I feel embarrassed even saying it, and I hate it, and I hate myself for doing it. But I'm going with the New York football Giants, -7, Sunday Night Football, in what promises to be a exciting, well-played, dramatic game against the San Francisco 49ers. I assume it'll probably be something like 13-3, 16-7, some shitty score like that. But I'll take the Giants -7. I think the 49ers look completely lost.
Thank you very much for the picks, Ron. And I'll tell you this, I will concur on the 49er offense. I don't know how they're going to score. I don't know where they're going to get the touchdown from. It just seems physically impossible for them to score touchdowns right now, the way they've looked the last 2 weeks. But, that's football for you. We'll have more on this game, I think, in a little bit, just a little tease. But first, let's go to Andy in Seattle, coming with his Week 5 NFL picks. Andy, you've got the floor.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I want to take Seattle, but I'll take it off the program. I'm not gonna go with them on the show. It's just too risky. And Benson's right about the Giants. They are live. They are a live dog now. And Coughlin, speaking of the 70s, the new 50, I think it's true. Coughlin he's in the fountain of youth now, and just look out for them in January. That's all I'll say. And so my first pick, I try to avoid the checker on the checkers, but I'm gonna take Green Bay because we're gonna also borrow the letdown factor. This Rams team, when they beat the Seahawks in the start of the season off with this great division win, they went to Washington, which we don't know what Washington really is at the moment, and then they got their asses kicked 24-10. Last week, they went to Arizona, a team that all of us and other people think are going to be really good, and they kind of stole the game away from them in the second half. And now they're probably reading all their clippings about themselves, and now they have to go to Green Bay, where Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw interceptions, where Aaron Rodgers takes his game to the highest of the highest levels. And, you got to watch out for the prevent defense. But I do not foresee a scenario where the Rams can keep up with the Packer offense. And you combine that with the letdown factor that I think will be in the mix. I think Green Bay has a great time on Sunday. And then we're all back to saying, well, what exactly do we have with the Rams? So give me Green Bay for game number 1. Game number 2, we are going back to the Operation Tom Brady gives 0 Fs mode tour. And they take their game to Dallas with Jim Nantz and Phil Simms on a CBS game. For most of the country will see that. Some people will see Oakland, Denver. But we'll get New England, Dallas. This is a game where we bleed Patriot colors and we see lollipops and rainbows with them all the time. And when Bill Belichick sees Rex Ryan's exotic blitz and exotic defensive packages, his eyes light up in delight. And I do not foresee a scenario where the Cowboy defense will stop Tom Brady. They were not able to stop Drew Brees, despite Drew Brees not being able to throw the ball more than 20 yards downfield. Brady can throw the ball more than 20 yards downfield. He can also dink and dunk. So I think Rex Ryan will be og-shop for 60 minutes. The defense of the Cowboys, like John said, made Brandon Weeden look like Joe Montana. Tom Brady is a little better than Brandon Weeden. So I just, maybe I am being a homer, but I think the Patriots will have a pretty decent time covering their spread on Sunday. So game number 2, New England -8.5 against the Cowboys.
Nicely done. Thank you very much for those picks, Andy. Now let's go to say hello to Ottis for his Week 5 NFL selections.
Okay. I actually thought that this first game was where Ron was going. He kind of threw me for a loop when he went to the Giants. Speaking about how ill it made him feel to make the selection, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills -2.5 against the Tennessee Titans. We've seen Rex Ryan. We've seen the penalties. But against a rookie quarterback and a team that I don't think is that good, I think it was more to the competition, their wins. So I'm going to take Rex Ryan's defense against the Titans. -2.5 is the line I see for my first pick there. And then my second pick, I am going to take the Arizona Cardinals in Detroit. I can't believe that they are only giving 3 points to that Lions team. We watched them Monday night. I was shocked when the score was as close as it was. Lions defense just didn't look very good. Their offensive line is Swiss cheese. I just think the Cardinals defense is going to completely overrun them. And I've been saying the Cardinals praises all year. So give me the Cardinals -3 in Detroit for my second pick.
Thank you very much, Oatman. Bills -2.5, Cardinals -3 for the NFL picks, week number 5. It is now my turn to give picks. And here they are. I'll be very swift with the selections. We start in hot Atlanta, where maybe things are going to cool down for the Falcons offense. Last week, they scored 48 points in beating the Houston Texans. And you gotta watch for a team that scores that much in a game the next week. Because where are they gonna come out offensively after being that good? The adage is that they'd be in for a big letdown. Let us take you back last year to September 18th. Thursday Night Football. The Falcons at home, different coach, Mike Smith, then Quinn now, won 56-14 against Tampa Bay. The next week, they lost 41-28 at Minnesota. So caution to the wind on the Atlanta Falcons. But there are also examples where it also works out. I mean, New England beat Chicago 56-something, and they ended up winning by a lot of points the next week too. Steelers, same thing last year. So it doesn't always work out, but this is Atlanta. I just haven't been fully sold to them all year. And to Oatman's point from a few weeks ago, I feel like the Redskins play a pretty competent defense. The issue is the issue is on the other side of the field. So I'll take the Redskins +7.5 at the Falcons. Game number 1. Game number 2? You're not going to believe this, guys. I'm going head-to-head with Ron in New Jersey. I like the 49ers +7 against the Giants. Now, logically, this makes no sense at all. The Niners have done nothing offensively. They haven't even had a threat of scoring a touchdown. But somehow, it's just been nagging at me all week long. Dave, I don't think the Giants are going to cover this. Dave, you got to take the Niners. Dave, you got to take the Niners. The last time this happened was as we were heading into Saturday last week. My brain was nagging at me all day on Saturday. Why didn't you take Arizona State? Why didn't you take them +13? And so I looked at it. Arizona State dominated that game. So you know what? Even though it makes no sense at all, even though the Niners offense looks awful, I mean hopeless, even though their coach farts during press conferences, I'm taking the Niners +7 at the Giants. The Giants are always due at any given moment to be a very sloppy team and turn the ball over massively. Eli Manning's known for throwing an interception. I think the Niners are going to feast off some of those takeaways. It'll be like 13-6 or something like that. So we'll go not even 13-6, 13-9. So we'll go 49ers +7. So again, Redskins +7.5, Niners +7. Your Week 5 NFL picks. So the last remaining person for picks this week, it is John in Connecticut. John, it's all yours.
All right, last man on the totem pole this week. I also picked 2 games that we haven't talked about. The first game, this line jumped off the page at me, and maybe I'm completely crazy, but how is the Kansas City Chiefs giving 9 points to anybody when they can't score a touchdown? So I'm going to take the Bears getting 9 in Kansas City. I know I killed the Bears here last week, and they're not a good team at all, but it's certainly more competitive with Jay Cutler in there, as you saw on Sunday. If I had known he was going to play, I would not have picked the Raiders. At least he can move the ball down the field and score a couple touchdowns. The Chiefs, they scored 7 field goals the other day. I mean, their offense is just not that good, and I don't know how they can give 9 points to anyone. I think they'll probably win the game, but this just feels like a 23-17 game or something like that. So give me the Bears plus 9 for game 1. And for game 2, we'll go to Monday night, and again, a line that I thought was kind of short. I mean, anyone who watched that game with the Steelers and the Ravens saw that Michael Vick cannot play quarterback anymore in the NFL. He just takes too many sacks, too many turnovers, and he misses wide-open throws. And now he's going to be going on the road to San Diego. Now, granted, you really can't trust the Chargers. They're the kind of team that will burn you, but they're only laying 3. You only got to win by a field goal. I thought this line was going to be like 6 or 7, so 3 is a bonus. And I just think the Steelers can't really do much with Michael Vick on offense unless they hand it to Le'Veon Bell every single play. But we all know Todd Haley and Mike Tomlin will overthink themselves, and that's not going to happen. So give me the Chargers -3 to. The Steelers' defense isn't that good as well, so you would figure that the Chargers to be able to score some points. So San Diego -3 for the second pick on Monday Night Football.
Thank you very much, John. Personally, I'm having a tough time with that game myself. You mentioned it. These delicate geniuses who coach the team, after a while, you give the benefit of the doubt, you give the benefit of the doubt, you give the benefit of the doubt. These guys are clowns. I mean, now, Andy got more upset about the Steeler loss than I did, but it's nevertheless remains. These guys are terrible. I mean, you're 4th and 1, and you keep the ball away from your best player. In what universe does that make sense? It does not make sense. So that is a travesty. Okay. We're just about done. So final thoughts about the upcoming schedule. We won't have time to do breakdowns, so let's just run it back to the table. John, I'll give it to you first. What do you like from week number 5 in the NFL?
Some interesting games. That Seattle Cincinnati game is pretty interesting. I don't think the Seahawks are particularly great this year, but like I said, I did a tweet the other night that they're kind of like a scummy team that they just kind of hang around and win games, and that's like the kind of the most dangerous team there is because you're never really out of it. So it'll be a big test to see if Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton are actually for real, and if they can win this game and get to 5-0. I mean, I hate to say, the old saying, Tigers don't change their stripes or something. So maybe the Bengals will be up to something this year if they can win this game against Seattle.
Great. Okay, so John, say hello to Ottis. Let's see what you like from week number 5 in the NFL. What are you looking forward to?
I think that Saints-Eagles game is just kind of a complete clown car of a game. And I guess we can kind of write off one of those teams that loses that game there. It'll be interesting to see if the Eagles offense can get going against that team and the infamous Rob Ryan defense. Other than that, also, I think I'd keep my eye on the Raiders this week against Denver. They always play them tight at home. They've been kind of a hit-or-miss team this year, and we all know how Peyton's throwing the ball. So Denver's defense will have to win that one. So that's an interesting game to watch.
I'm not going to make it official, but I think I like the Raiders to win the game. Denver is way past due to lose. Manning looks terrible. I mean, I think they're going to lose that game. Let's see. Let's go to Andy in Seattle. What are you looking forward to from Week 5?
Yep. Cincinnati, Seattle. I just wish Lynch was a little healthier. I'd be a lot more confident taking the Seahawks. Because it's a 10 a.m. game early for them, short week, going out east. That's usually a recipe for disaster. But. The Bengals are the Bengals are the Bengals are the Bengals. It's Marvin Lewis. It's Andy Dalton. I think if there's any equivalent to University of Georgia in the NFL, it's the Cincinnati Bengals. So I think they're in the similar spot that Georgia was last week. And it's like every year, can you get over the hump? Can you win in the playoffs? Can you win a big game at home? And they haven't yet. So we're gonna, wait and see. The other game I wanted to talk about that no one wants to talk about is Jacksonville, Tampa. Did you guys see the coverage maps? Every Wednesday the website shows all the maps of which region gets which game, and I don't even think the entire state of Florida will get Jacksonville, Tampa. That game would, if there's a proverbial afterlife for bad people, that's the game that would be on. The only people watching that game would probably be the parents of the Bucks and the Jaguars. That game,
Big finger.
I know, but that's a bad game. I'm sorry. I know Winston, he'll have his days, but I don't know. Can we rule Bortles as bad at this point?
I don't know. I think you can. Yeah, I'd say you can. John, anybody else want to weigh in?
Yeah,
Bortles sucks.
Yeah, this is just brutal. I mean, I don't have anything else to add. I feel bad for anyone in Florida. I had to go to the beach on Sunday if you're in Florida.
Even if it's raining.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's see who's left over then. We have Ron in New Jersey. Let's get your outlook on week number 5. Any games that were on your radar?
Well, I think everybody pretty much covered it, but I will tell you this, and I guarantee you this, that the Buffalo Bills will show up in Tennessee and they will make you proud when they play like a Bill.
Ron, I'll never. This quote stuck with me from Rex Ryan when they lost the game, and my dad was watching it with me, and Rex is usually doing his usual BS, and he's like, "Well, we don't have this and this, but we have heart." And my dad says, "Heart doesn't win you games. You need legs. You need arms to win games." I laughed so hard when he said that. Heart does nothing.
They have a lot of heart and absolutely zero brain, so it doesn't really equal that so much.
I just threw this correlation in my head right now. You remember when Michael Kay was taking shots at Francesa, and he was like, he's number 1 now, but we're closing fast. That reminds me of Rex Ryan when he does we're not there yet, but we're coming, and we're going to get there.
It's a great analogy. That is pretty good. Well, guys, it's been a lot of fun. We're going to have to end it here. But have a great week with the games. It should be interesting. Probably not as much juice in college this week, but a lot of good pro games coming up on Sunday. And we do have some dandies anyway in the college schedule, despite the rest of the schedule not being as dense as it was last week. So it should be a good time. Guys, have a good weekend. Stay cool, stay warm, stay dry. That's what we should do. Stay dry. Stay dry, everybody. We will catch you guys next week.
All right, thanks. Good luck, everyone.
Take it easy.
All right, fellas. Thanks very much.
Dave, make sure that you don't let Panther get too many digs in on the Rangers.
I'll do what I can. I can't guarantee anything. Take care, buddy.
Take it easy.
All right, man. So that's going to do it for the Kids Club. Now let's get into America's favorite sport in the week of October the 7th in just a moment.
We love talking sports. Dave in the City.
All right, let's do it. It's time. It is the 2015 NHL season preview, and joining us for this wonderful moment is our hockey expert, Mike in North Jersey. And coming up in a little bit, we'll have Parcells Falling Out in on the happening. So, Mike, welcome to the show. How's it going tonight?
Pretty good, Dave. I heard the Oat Man giving you some instructions, so I'll do my best. It's not as much fun to rip on another team when your own team is pretty shitty. Right. So there's going to be some Ranger digs, but I think I'll keep myself under control.
Sounds like a plan. And one positive news from the Ranger front: the retirement of Martin Brodeur's number 30 coming up this season. Very nice.
Well, Dave, I think we all knew that was going to happen. Really, the bigger news is they're going to build a statue of him outside the Prudential Center. So I think it's a deserving honor. You know, granted, no one will be able to see it because the Devils have no fans. But, you know, I'm looking forward to, you know, at least if we're having another terrible year in February, if I walk in the building, I'll be able to see that. So it'd bring back some good memories.
Absolutely. So let's now get into the previews and the reviews of what we have on the table. And we'll be joined at some point by Parcells Falling Out, who's currently hosting some friends as they watch the Rangers battle the Blackhawks. The Rangers had the lead in the third period as we begin the hockey season in earnest tonight. 4 games on the schedule, including the hometown LA Kings against the San Jose Sharks. And on the interesting note about the Sharks lost Antti Niemi in the offseason. Who did they pick up? Kings backup Martin Jones. So he is now going to be the heir apparent over in San Jose, and they can use all the goaltending help that they can get. He was pretty solid for the Kings in backup action, but in a starting role, that's going to be an interesting situation. I mean, Scrivens had that chance. I think it was Jonathan Bernier had that chance. Neither of them lived up to it. Now let's see if Martin Jones brings anything different to the table. So the difference here, though, is that San Jose is a better team. It's not a great team. More on that coming up in a little bit. So we'll start with the season headlines, and I'll give you an update on the Ranger game. Same score, still 11 minutes, 57 seconds to go. And we do have Parcells joining us now on the program. Parcells, welcome to the show from Connecticut as the Rangers continue the third period. How's it going tonight?
Good. What's going on, Dave? What's up, Panther?
Doing well?
Hey, Parcells.
You guys doing all right?
Yeah, doing well. It's we're just getting started here. Then just getting going. We are about to reveal our season storylines for the year from the NHL. A few key points, and we'll get this one out of the way because this is not a very positive note to start on, but a lot of off-field, a lot of off-ice incidents, in particular the Patrick Kane sexual assault charge, and a lot of gears to that, and. Basically, it's under investigation, but if he is charged, if he is indicted, that is bad news for the Chicago Blackhawks because, you know, you talk about the top two, it's Taves and him. And Kane is a huge part of that team, which won the Stanley Cup last year. So, a lot of gears. Let's talk about just a little bit. We don't have to go way down the show with it, but we will begin with Mike. Patrick Kane, this is pretty bad. If everything turns out to be true, it's bad. But what is the latest with the Patrick Kane situation?
It's been a very bizarre case. There was something that happened with the accuser's mother was caught tampering evidence from a rape kit. So, I don't know, Dave. This seems, you know, it's very strange what's going on here. What most likely is going to happen, I would think, is that there'll be a civil settlement where he'll pay her some money and she'll drop the charges. I don't think they'll get charged, but, you know, who knows? I'm not a lawyer. But, you know, Patrick Kane, really, he's not a good person at all. You remember a few years ago, he and his friends assaulted a cab driver over basically not having 25 cents to pay him back for the money. So Patrick Kane is not a good dude. Now, we obviously don't know if this is true or not or what he did, but just the major distraction that it's caused, and you know, I'm really not sure if he should be playing. I just hope we see a resolution with this quickly because, you know, the longer he plays without any sort of, judicial action being done while it's still in the air, you know, the longer that this drags on, and, you know, it really doesn't look good for the league. You know, you have Patrick Kane and then everyone's on cocaine. So, a tumultuous offseason for the NHL off the ice.
Yeah, absolutely. Very tumultuous. I mean, you talk about how NFL's been tagged with all these guys with criminal activity, but, you know, the NHL's got some criminal activity of its own. That's the fact. I mean, we are seeing all these reports. And last year it was Slava Voinov who had the sexual assault issue, and now he's not even on the team. And it was a very similar situation. And honestly, I think that was as big a reason as any that the Kings did not have a great season last year. It's just such a big distraction. They were trying to get him to play, and then the NHL tagged him for it because they tried to sneak him into practice. It was so bad. just so bad for the Kings. It was so bad for the NHL. Jared Stoll was tagged for possession of I think it was marijuana. Was it cocaine, John? I mean,
cocaine.
Mike. It was cocaine?
Yeah, it was cocaine.
Oh, my God. Jeez. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, but he I think if I recall correctly, he settled that down to a couple of misdemeanors or something.
All right.
But just back on the Kane thing, it's the NHL opens their season tonight, and NBC Sports Network, when they immediately come on the air, they go right to the Kane story, and it's just such a black eye. Whether it's true or not, the fact that he just puts himself in these situations time and time again, like Mike said, he's a good hockey player, but he's probably not a very good dude. So, the league just can't be happy with any of this.
No, not at all. I mean, and then just adding to that, I mean, if the off the ice incidents are bad enough, how about an on the ice incident? Raffi Torres with a extremely dirty hit. He basically elbowed Jakob Silfverberg in a preseason game in the face. He elbowed him in the face, knocked him out. It looked like he had a concussion. He's still not back on the ice yet for the Anaheim Ducks. So Torres of the Sharks suspended 41 games by the NHL. That's a huge suspension. One might think an exorbitant suspension. It's not. If you really look at what happened, and credit to both of you for Parcells for linking me the video, really broke it all down well. I mean, you really got a full detail as to the nature of the incident and why it was a 41-game suspension. A great ruling, but Raffi Torres, just another problem for the league. I mean, I'm getting to a point where he's had so many of these dirty hits. I wonder if he should even be playing anymore. So he's not going to be playing for a while, but should he be banned permanently at some point? Let's actually swing it back.
Well, it'll probably get there, Dave, at some point, because he is who he is. I mean, he's a clown's clown. I mean, that hit is as predatory as you get. I don't know how many strides he took, but you could tell he just earmarked Silfverberg. Shoulder to the head. Silfverberg didn't even, have a chance to move out of the way. And the guy's been doing this his whole career. So, I mean, there's just no place for that sort of thing in the sport. But, you have the usual stuff that goes on with, Players Association and agreement for discipline. And, it's just been escalating. His previous suspension was in the 20s. He does this again to Silfverberg. It's up in the 40s. But like I said, the next one is going to be a full season, and hopefully it doesn't get to that. But the guy's just a clown, plain and simple.
Yeah, it's a joke. He's a joke. So let's go to Mike. Anything on the Raffi Torres incident?
Yeah, Torres is just someone who clearly doesn't get it. He's completely out of control. Why? It wasn't even like it was a hit where someone was coming across the middle of the ice with their head down and you were trying to prevent them from entering the zone with speed. He just targeted them, skated, a good, I don't know how many feet, but halfway across the zone, full speed, right at shoulder, right to the jaw. Why would you be so stupid to do that? He's completely out of control. And I think we've pretty much seen the last of him. If he comes back and he ever does anything like that again, it's the full season. And once that happens, he'll pretty much be blacklisted out of the league anyway. There's really, I don't think that it's being unfair when someone is proving that they're incapable of controlling their behavior and present such a danger to other players on the ice.
Yeah, it's just outrageous now with what's going on there. I just tuned to the New York Chicago game. First thing I see, Patrick Kane. So there you go. So they go right to him on the cameras. Some other notes from the NHL from the season. Another similarity with the NFL of late: concussion lawsuits. And very sad news last week. Todd Ewan, a former player, committed suicide. So apparently, head trauma is as big a problem in the NHL as it is in the NFL. So is it as severe as the CTE issues we've speculated about with the National Football League? Mike, it's your floor. I mean, how real is the concussion issue in the NHL?
I've seen studies done that say that the average impact of an NHL hit is actually worse than an NFL hit, but at the same time, you don't have you don't have as many, and it's not nearly as many players, so you won't see as widespread of an issue as you do in the NFL. And basically, you play in the NFL for any period of time, you better be willing to almost sacrifice the rest of your life for that. You have to go in knowing that that's a good possibility. The NHL, it's not as bad, but there are some cases of people who have just been a complete mess after their careers, or careers really ended by concussion. You know, Pat LaFontaine, someone that comes to mind from years ago. Obviously, Eric Lindros. Brett Lindros is even worse. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's going to be it's definitely an issue. I don't know. I think they've done really what they can do about it, except for maybe going to full face guards with banning, targeting the head. That used to be a legal check. Shoulder to the head was legal. So I think they've done the right thing. Now it's just a matter of making sure that people who were subjected to this kind of abuse are taken care of.
That's really well thought out, Mike. It really is. So let's go to Parcells. Any further commentary or ideas you wanted to add to that?
No, Mike covered it all. It seemed Mike knows a little bit more about it than me. But, it's just, the game is played at such a high rate of speed, and they've had so many guys go down. And Mike named the names of, both Lindros brothers and Pat LaFontaine. And, the Rangers recently, the past couple of years, had a defenseman, Michael Sauer, who took actually, a fairly clean hit from Dion Phaneuf, and, he hasn't come back in 3 years from a concussion. So and his career is over. So, it's a serious issue, and hopefully the NHL is taking it seriously, and all these leagues take it seriously. It's just a huge issue.
Yeah, it's good to see that the NHL is taking action, though, and I think now that one difference between the NHL, from my point of view, over what the NFL is doing is that when the NFL first learned of it, they were trying to sweep it under the rug. It doesn't seem like the NHL is necessarily doing that. They're trying their best to combat the issue and make it better. So they did a pretty good job from that point of view. Next topic in our season storylines for the NHL's 2015-16 season. A switch in the format of the game. And this goes back to a lot of complaints about shootout wins. And it's just been so comical how many shootout wins you've been seeing in the NHL. And it's messed up all the standings, and it really inflates mediocre teams' records to decent records. It really is it's just dumb. I just think the whole thing is dumb. I think they should just go back to ties. But the NHL's got to do something. So the league decided to combat this issue, they would switch from 4x4 regular season 5-minute overtime to 3x3 regular season overtime, so that at least you'll get somebody scoring a goal instead of going to more of the shootout. So I can't even imagine what you make of all this. Let's start with Parcells. Is this just putting a Band-Aid on a bigger issue?
It is putting a Band-Aid, but it's better than having so many shootouts. I think 3-on-3 is a gimmick, but at least it still has some hockey principles to it. And actually, I didn't know if I was going to be sold on it. When you used to see a 3-on-3 during regular play, it was fun stuff. So I didn't know how much I was going to buy into it. But watching it in the preseason, I thought it was a ton of fun. And there's going to be a little bit of strategy that goes into it. Who you're going to put on the ice? Are you going to put 3 forwards on? Are you going to go 2 forwards and a defenseman? I don't think anybody's going to go a forward and 2 defensemen. I think that's crazy. But I actually think it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely going to cut back on shootouts, because I also think there are going to be a lot of power plays. And a lot of the 3-on-3 I saw in preseason, there were a lot of penalties called. Guys get beat, and there were a ton of stick fouls, pulling guys down, and then you're 4-on-3. So I actually think it's a good move. I think shootouts have kind of outlived its usefulness. I think it was fun, and they sold it as the fans would love it and that sort of thing. And I think the fans got into it to begin with. I think the hardcore fans got tired of it a lot sooner. Someone like myself, I don't care for the shootout anymore, but I actually think it's going to be good. I think it's going to cut back significantly on shootouts, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun having that guy skating up and down in that much ice.
Well, I didn't realize that they would take penalties. There's only 3 players on the ice on each side. That's wild. So I guess you're right, because people are getting ahead of everybody.
Well, I think the thing is that it's going to be easy to get beat because there's so much ice.
Yeah.
There's not much protection behind the defender, so if he gets beat or somebody is side by side, you put your stick out and you hold him up, you're going to get called for a penalty on that.
Interesting. All right. Well, I saw one 3x3 shootout so far. It was the Kings-Ducks game, and I believe Anaheim went out. Not surprising. I mean, Anaheim's offensive depth is amazing. But let's go to Mike. Your thoughts about the conversion from 4x4 regular season overtime to 3x3.
That was a good summary there by Parcells. I agree with most of what he said. To me, once you institute something that's less than 5-on-5, it becomes somewhat gimmicky because the strategy changes, and 3-on-3 to me is 4-on-4. Yeah, I can say it's still relatable to 5-on-5. 3-on-3, this is just a completely different game. Granted, I much prefer it to the shootout. I've actually seen 4 of them in the preseason. The Devils had 3 of them in what were called demonstrations, where they just played after the game no matter what. And in their preseason finale, they had one against the Flyers, for real. So it's certainly very exciting because, if you can't handle a pass cleanly at the blue line, basically it's going the other way on an odd man rush. Any sort of mistake, the other team is going to be on an odd man rush. So it really puts an emphasis on speed, on good puck control. And Parcells is right. Because of what happens, if you get beat, you almost have to take the penalty because you're going to give up a extremely dangerous scoring chance if you don't. So I think that in the preseason, 95% of these 3-on-3s, ended. They didn't finish. So you're going to see far fewer shootouts, which is a good thing. I'd rather see 3-on-3 than a shootout. There's much more hockey, obviously, 3-on-3 than a shootout, which is just the shootout. Really, it's a total joke. If I had my way, I would just see them, play 5 minutes or maybe even play 10 minutes of continuous overtime, and then I think that might work better, a 5-on-5 continuous overtime, and maybe it would give them an incentive to try to, win within regulation, because if you don't play in an extra 10 minutes and over the course of the season, that could wear on you. But there's really no perfect solution to this.
Right.
But fewer shootouts is better.
I would agree with that. I mean, if we can keep the shootouts to a minimum, I just think it's just so dumb. Like, it just skews. Because, again, like, if you're a goaltender that's great, that's not a shootout does not necessarily evaluate how good of a goaltender you are. So, it does sound like the two of you agree that this is a good compromise for what we, somewhere between 5-on-5 and what we had last year. So, it's a reasonable, it's a reasonable compromise that will result in, and if that percentage of 95% holds up, that's very good. Because, like, again, I would rather take that. I think I too would rather take that over some 18-frame shootout. Like, no, just enough,
Yeah, and Dave, I think part of the problem with all this with the NHL, ever since they went to overtime and then eventually shootout, is a problem with the scoring system. Is they still value a regulation win the same they value an overtime win or a shootout win.
Right.
If they don't want to mess with tradition of the 2-point win, and I kind of get that. But if you move to something where a regulation win was 3 points and an overtime or shootout win was 2 points, it puts more emphasis and a greater reward for winning the game in the first 60 minutes than it does in overtime or a shootout. But also, on top of that, just staying on this topic, I kind of wanted to hear, Mike's opinion of who he would put out on the ice for a 3-on-3, because me personally, I just don't know how much defending is going to go on. And unless you have a really highly skilled offensive defenseman, I don't know what the usage would be of having a defenseman out there as opposed to going with, three of your most skilled forwards out there. So, just to throw it out there, how would you guys go about it in 3-on-3?
I mean, the way I've seen it being deployed in the games I've watched is that I think I did see once they went 2 defensemen, 1 forward, but really it depends. It depends on where the face-off is being taken, who you're matched up against, the skill level of your own team and your own personnel compared to the other team's personnel. Like against, say for the Islanders, for example, or even the Rangers with the Devils, I'm going to be more inclined to not really put out my guys who are necessarily the most skilled ones, but probably the best combination of overall speed and positional awareness and stability like that. Like, the Devils have done well in that. I think part of that is because John Hines, their new coach, it was in the AHL last year, the 3-on-3, so they might have a little leg up on that with his experience with it. But it's multiple ways to do it. Like with the Rangers, I'd put out someone like Kreider or, Yandel, and then maybe pick another guy, and that's going to be very tough to stop. So, but it really depends on the personnel of your team. If you have, you can't put out people that are old and slow, and luckily the Devils do not have as many old and slow players anymore. So, could you imagine last year's Devil team playing the Rangers or Islanders in a 3-on-3 overtime? How hilarious that would be to watch!
Oh, gosh.
Right.
Because I remember the first Devil Ranger game of the year last year in the 4-on-4. Pete DeBoer, and I guess we'll get to him a little bit later, puts out Bryce Salvador, Ryan Clough, and Dinas Zubris. Those are 3 of his 4 people. The second I saw it, I go, the Rangers are just going to skate right through this and score and win, aren't they? And 30 seconds later, boom, it happens. So it'll definitely benefit your team, Parcells, but your other big rival, the Islanders, going to help them out too. So I hope to get you two square off in that.
Yeah, I just think that there's so much ice out there that even your quicker, your better defensemen, I think they're at a significant disadvantage. Just anybody trying to defend out there. I think it's going to be, who's faster, who gets the open space, and I don't know how much defending there's going to be. So, that's why I threw it out there. That's why I think, 3 forwards. I think there are teams that are going to go with 3 forwards. I mean, Pittsburgh, I wouldn't be surprised if they throw out Malkin, Crosby, and Kessel and just, try to win in the first 45 seconds of overtime every time there. And then you could throw out, a Letang, and I don't know how else they go with, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how some of these coaches handle this.
Yeah, a lot of interesting strategy is to come in the next few months as the season rolls along. So much to cover on that. We also have news from the draft, but I think we can also cover this in our division preview. So we'll talk about the Connor McDavid impact on the league later. But I will say this, and I know that Mike was absolutely incensed at the way the Sabres were quitting the season, not even trying in these games. And just a moment of poetic justice, they still miss out on Connor McDavid in the draft because the Oilers still finished with the worst record. So, Mike, a little vindication, or do you think? Do you feel a little satisfied with the fact that the Sabres tried to cheat and didn't win?
No, not really, because they actually changed the rule this year that I think it's the bottom. I forget how many. Bad job out of me. But what the Sabres did last year is they guaranteed themselves at least the number 2 pick. And granted, you're going into a draft with 2 generational talents. Obviously, McDavid considered more highly touted than Eichel. Ooh, Blackhawks just tied the game.
Just saw it. And this
Were
is
they waving
after
us
they
off?
had guys going to the box. Shaw was tagged. Somebody else was tagged. It was 4-on-4, but the Blackhawks got the empty netter. Oh, man. Man, that stinks.
Well, we might get that 3-on-3.
We might get that 3-on-3. We'll get a demonstration tonight. NBC Sports.
No, I think they're going to wave this off.
Oh, what do you see, Mike?
We'll see. We can get back on topic, and I guess we can get to it once they decide here.
Okay, so they're going to replay the goal in question, and it looked like Taze had a hand on it or a stick on it, but we don't know if it's going to count yet. So we will review that, and as we continue that, we'll talk more about the differences between the top two in the draft. Yeah, McDavid having an impact. The other, as you mentioned, the one who the Sabres got a lot, and I mean a lot, of hype for Jack Eichel. It's there are a lot of high hopes there for both guys. So let's actually go to Parcells, and we'll go back to you, Mike, on this topic. Your top two, McDavid and Eichel. I mean, or is it Eichel? Which one is it?
I know it's Eichel.
It's Eichel. Okay.
Yeah, he was a freshman last year at Boston University and had a tremendous year. I mean, you have two guys here who are generational talents. McDavid was everybody's pick last year to be the number one, and I didn't see enough of McDavid. I saw a bunch of Eichel, and the kid is a stud. Buffalo has a chance to surprise this year. I'm sure we'll get to that, but they have some talent on that team, and who knows what's going to happen with Edmonton. But I think both guys are going to be tremendous. They're two of the most highly touted top picks. I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting distracted here, Dave, watching the replay of this stuff. But no, I mean they're both going to be studs. They're not going to be Sidney Crosby level right out of the gate. Crosby in his first year had over 100 points, and teams aren't scoring like that any longer. But there's no reason not to believe these guys aren't going to have a significant impact on their teams right away.
Yeah, it looks really promising. It's like when you get really good quarterbacks at the top two of the draft. I mean, very, very good chance of them being very beneficial to their respective teams. Now, I just peeked away before they made the ruling. Is that a goal or no goal? A no goal. So no goal in the Chicago game. So the Rangers will retain the 3-2 advantage. And we'll try to see what happens in the remaining minute. The LA Kings are on the board first in their home opener against the San Jose Sharks. That's underway. And 1-0 LA Kings as we begin a slightly revamped roster. In fact, one huge signing, which we will detail in a few minutes. So let's begin. Oh, yeah, Mike, any final thoughts about McDavid and Eichel?
With McDavid, he's not going to score as many points as Crosby did his first year in the league, obviously, because as Parcells noted, scoring is actually way down from that first year after the year-long lockout. But McDavid is, without a doubt, the most highly touted prospect since Sidney Crosby. You were hearing about him 2 years ago. So for someone as touted as him to not live up or be a disappointment, it usually doesn't happen. We have high draft picks all the time, or even number one picks, who aren't quite what we expect. But, when they know at 15 years old that you're going to be a superstar, or they're calling you that, it's very difficult for it not to happen, because I think the level of talent that you possess is just so high that, they're not even number one picks. There's a difference between a number one pick in a draft and a generational talent. McDavid is without a doubt a generational talent. Eichel is called that. Could he bust? I don't think he will, but if it happened, it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world. For McDavid not to come in the league and be a Crosby or a level of a Lindros-based I think we obviously have one of the best players in the league already at 18 years old. Granted, if we want to talk about Edmonton real quickly, if you look at players like Crosby or Eric Lindros, or Steven Stamkos really wasn't on that level, but they don't turn around the team the first year. It takes usually until the second year, and I think also with Buffalo, although Buffalo's a little more intriguing with their talent, they could surprise. We'll see two players who have an impact, but I don't know how much of an impact it will be in the standings, at least in year number one for both of them.
Buffalo completed a huge trade with the Chicago Blackhawks, who we're following right now on the program, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But we now begin our division-by-division NHL previews, and the Sabres are in the Atlantic Division. That's our first division to cover. Well, let's look at it. We have the Lightning, who won the conference last year. Really the best offense of the division, if you really think about it. Young team with Stamkos and Kucherov and Johnson. And, not much change to the roster. They shouldn't change the roster a whole lot anyway. It was a very good team. In the division to compete with them will be the Canadiens. I think you've got a lot of the same problems that you had with them last year. They just don't have great scoring, but they are a tough, rugged defensive team. And I have a note here that says they switched to a 3-line attack. What were they using before, guys? Like, was some sort of weird system of that? What's the difference between 3 lines and whatever they were doing before?
I don't know. I didn't know that they made any sort of change. I don't know if they lessened the impact of their fourth line. I know they rolled 4 lines. I know they made a trade of Brandon Prust for Zach Kassian, and they sent out an older fourth line guy for a younger fourth line guy. But I didn't realize that they were cutting back or they were going to diminish the minutes of the fourth line. So I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, that's a curious decision if they decide to do that. So I'll have to get some more detail on that to figure out what they're really trying to do. The Red Wings are kind of so-so. Senators, Bobby Ryan was disappointing last year. My goodness. I mean, they signed him to this nice contract, but he did not really perform for them. And so they're going to have to turn to some youth to get their season going. The Bruins are an interesting case. Milan Lucic leaves the team. I'll tell you where he went as we go along in the program. Mark Savard's gone. Some of the other people are gone. Chara is supposed to carry the load, but he's hurt. So who's left over? Krejci and Marchand. And they add from the Ducks Matt Bolesky and another fellow, Jimmy Hayes. A bit of a mess there. Panthers, again, another defensive team. Maple Leafs are not good at defense or offense. They stink. And then the Sabres, we just talked about them. The big trade. They traded with the Blackhawks because the Blackhawks needed cap room, so they got... Oh, no, I'm sorry. The trade was with the Jets. Excuse me. They traded a lot of guys. They traded
are you talking about the Evander Kane trade?
Yeah, the Evander Kane trade. Traded with the Jets. Yep. Kane, Bastian, Kasdorf were all traded to the Sabres. And Enroth goes to the Stars for Anders Lindback and a pick. Michael Neuwirth swapped for Chad Johnson. And then we mentioned Jack Eichel. So, the Sabres might be in position to make a run. Dan Bialsma, who had been coaching the Penguins for quite a long time, will be coaching the Sabres this year. So let's look at the Atlantic Division. Let's start with Mike. Who are going to be the teams to beat from the Atlantic?
You have to start. Actually, I believe, in fact, I'm certain that Montreal did win they didn't come out of the playoffs, obviously, but they did win the regular season at least.
You mean the division? Atlantic. Yeah, I think you're right.
But it was close. It was like 2 points or something. Tampa Bay, to me, is by far and away the favorite, not only in that division, but in the East. They are just absolutely loaded, and with the youth that they have, and especially now, Jonathan Drouin is expected to play on a line with Steven Stamkos. If this guy breaks out and becomes another impact top 6 forward for them, good luck playing them, really. They're an absolutely outstanding team who I think would have won the Stanley Cup had Tyler Johnson not hurt his wrist. Because for some reason, he really stepped up, and I'm not saying he's better than Steven Stamkos, but in the playoffs, as far as I'm concerned, he was the best player on their team. And once he couldn't shoot, it was like, they kind of fell apart. But I would definitely put them first. Montreal is an interesting team. They really upset the hockey analytics crowd because they are constantly bad at puck possession, but they find ways to win. And I think, going on 2 years in a row now, you can win if you have solid goaltending, speed, and the ability to create chances off the rush. And even if you're not a great possession team, I like to say. But Montreal, are they going to go over the top if they have to rely on Carey Price so much? I don't think so. And after that, Detroit, the departure of Mike Babcock obviously looms. They have to see how they adjust without him. They also have to see who their starting goalie is going to be, Jimmy Howard or Mrazek. So bit of a goaltending controversy there to sort out. How much longer can Datsuk and Zetterberg hold up? Also the intriguing young player Dylan Larkin, who might make a good impact for them. So Detroit's someone to keep an eye on. Toronto, they have that tremendous brain trust. I'm really not sure why they hired Lou Lamoriello. Maybe we can get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, Lamoriello. So he leaves the Devils after all those years, and I know you were a big fan of it towards the end. Well, he was a good coach anyway. Now he's with the Leafs, and it's just a mess. I mean, everybody they hire seems to be a dud. I don't know what the deal is with those guys.
Well, as for their team, though, they basically conceded the year already. They're playing a stop player. I don't blame them, because do you really want to bring up young players that aren't going to develop under those circumstances? That's what they said. So I think we can forget about Toronto this year. Boston, I think Boston's in for a big fall. Apparently, Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, who are basically running the team, do not like Claude Julien. So they're almost waiting for them to get off to a poor start so they can fire him. And, Zdeno Chara, even if he was healthy, he's dropping off quickly. And they don't have enough. Even if Krejci has a bounce-back season and stays healthy, I don't see them doing that much, to be honest with you. Maybe they can sneak in because of how the playoff format works, but they'd be one and done. And Buffalo, I think they're a year away. And I'd also like to point out that Dan Bausma is an idiot.
Yeah.
And I have no idea why he would get a coaching job anywhere. I'm sorry, the guy won a Stanley Cup with Terrian's system, and the only reason he was successful is because the players hated Terrian. So it was basically anyone but Terrian, and Bausma was the guy. And when he had a coach with his own system, his own strategy, he's fallen short every year. So I think he's a terrible coach. So Buffalo can have fun with him.
I mean, if they work their way up, it might be worth it. But he does not coach well. No, he is terrible. A couple finals to announce to you. The Rangers get off the season to a good start. They win 3-2 at Chicago. And in baseball, the Cubs finish off the Pirates. They win the game 4-0 in the NL wildcard. The Cubs are now your representatives in the division series. So the season continues for an upstart Chicago Cubs team led by the brilliant Jake Arrieta, who had a no-hitter at Dodger Stadium on Sunday Night Baseball a few weeks ago. And said Cubs, wow, a year ahead of schedule, and the prophecy of Hill Valley 2015 may come to fruition. It's too bad that the Marlins could not have had a better season. So let's go on to Parcells for his look at the Atlantic Division in the NHL. Let's see what you think of it.
To echo what Mike was saying, I think obviously Tampa is the cream of the division and of the conference as well. They just do everything well. If there's any weak spot, is it Ben Bishop in goal? If he's off his game? But I mean, they do everything well from all their lines. Their defense is tremendous with Hedman and Strawman. Hedman could be a Norris candidate. Well, he is a Norris candidate. He could win the Norris. He is that good, and he's developing that well. And his partner, Strawman, who the Rangers had and mistakenly let go, is as underrated as it gets. They're just such a good team, and Montreal is clearly the second best team in that division. They've had trouble scoring, but with Carey Price in goal and PK Subban, who's also a Norris candidate year in, year out, Pacioretty up front, they need Galchenyuk to really step up this year, and scored 25, 30 goals. But I think that after those two, I think the division's a big question mark. I think ultimately, and we'll probably get into this, I think they're only a 3 playoff team division. I think the Metropolitan is going to get 5. Who that third team is going to be? Is it Ottawa? Is it Detroit? Can Florida surprise? Being so close to Boston up here, I consume a lot of Boston media and hear all the talk and follow the Bruins a lot. They just seem like they're a bit in disarray. It's a team with an identity crisis. They fire the GM, they keep the head coach, and they want to change the way they play. Well, that's great, but you have a 38, 39-year-old Chara on the back line who's declining, plus he's hurt right now. His defense partner, Dennis Seidenberg, is out 6 weeks. So they lose their top 2 defensemen, and they were already fairly thin back there. They make some, head-scratching moves, like trading a third-round pick for Zach Rinaldo. Zach Rinaldo is arguably the worst player in the NHL, and they're trading valuable assets to him to add to a fourth line. The Bruins used to be able to roll out 4 lines consistently. And they can no longer do that. And if you have Zach Rinaldo right now on your fourth line, you're not a 4-line team. You're back to a 3-line team. So I don't even think the Bruins come into play. But I think the division is clearly all about Tampa and Montreal, and then it's going to be I think a 3-way fight for that third spot between Detroit, Ottawa, and Florida.
Well, I see. Yeah, I see a lot of teams that are still trying to figure out where they are. That's what I'm seeing with the Atlantic Division. So where it's more set is the Metropolitan Division, a deeper division, and then a more fun division too. The Rangers have a lot of young players. It's a very fast team, and we saw Kevin Hayes had a big season last year, really his breakout season. To this team, they signed Jarrett Stoll, who was with the Kings as recently as last year, but as you just heard, he's got his own issues with, with illicit substances. They traded for Eaton from the Anaheim Ducks, who does a decent job on defense. I think he's a defenseman. I've got to double check that. So,
a wing.
Do I have that right?
No, he's a wing.
Oh, he's a winger. Okay, sorry. He's not a winger. He is a winger, so I take that back. So, again, a pretty good team. Islanders, here's the problem with the Islanders. Look, they can score goals, but they give up a lot of goals too. And they will start their first season at Barclays Center after calling the Nassau Coliseum their home for the first 40-some-odd years of their lifetime. So this is really a fork in the road for them, because are they going to really be a thing? Are they going to matter in the NHL? They need to do something with that defense. I don't think they really did. So they're going to have some issues with that most of the year. And the Devils, I won't say anything about them too much, because I really would like to have Mike expound on this, but a lot of changes. Lamoriello moves on. Another coach, the 4th in 5 years, it is John Hines. We mentioned him. And Ray Shero takes over at GM. So another defensive team there. Capitals still in transition, although they did make a playoff appearance last year. Penguins, we mentioned them. I think it's going to be more similar, kind of a similar team to the Islanders. They a lot of guys that can score, obviously, Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. Amazing, of course. And to that, they add Nick Bonino, who I'm a fan of. I like him. And Eric Fair. Defenseman, not good. Blue Jackets, they had the trade we were just talking about, the Saad trade. Huge trade with the Blackhawks. I think I got confused because I thought that the Sabres traded with the Blackhawks. It was the Blue Jackets. They traded Saad for Anisimov, Dano, Moore, and Trop. So the Blackhawks get a lot of depth, but the Blue Jackets get their guy. And there it is for that. Flyers, Hurricanes, not much to talk about there. Metropolitan Division. We begin with Parcells Falling Out and the Rangers, who are currently 1-0. What are your what's your look at the division?
Well, starting with I still think the Rangers can win the division. Whether they will, I think it's a 5-team division. I think it's Rangers, Islanders, Capitals, Blue Jackets, and the Penguins. I think those are the 5 teams that make the playoffs. But I think the Rangers in the regular season take a bit of a step back. I don't think they win the President's Cup. They had, I think, 114 points last year. I don't think that they have that many points. Look, I think the Rangers are an interesting team because I think they have some high-end forwards, but the Rangers have some age, but they also have some youth. They have youth that haven't hit their prime yet, but they have some age that is just past their prime. So, but I think the Rangers will be all about Lundqvist. Lundqvist is their best defenseman, their best defender. I think their group of defensemen, I think in the mainstream media they get a lot of praise, but I actually think the Rangers defense corps is overrated. I think they have 3 guys who can skate and move the puck, and then I think they have 3 guys who are statues, who can't skate, can't move the puck all that well, and I think that's going to be ultimately their downfall. But I think their forward group is very solid, as long as then I got to get my daily Tanner Glass shot in there. As long as they keep Tanner Glass off the ice, off the fourth line, I think they can roll 4 lines pretty well. I'm not completely sold on Jarrett Stoll out there.
Well, he's old. I don't think he's gonna. I honestly don't think there's much to expect from him. To be perfectly honest, he was already regressing. The last 3 years. So I don't know what to expect either.
I think outside of being a solid face-off guy, I don't know what he brings to the table.
Right.
But I think the Rangers are still going to be a quality team. The Islanders have a tremendous group of forwards. And like you had mentioned, I'm not completely sold on their defense, and I'm not sold on their goaltender. So they're going to score a ton of goals, but they're going to give up a ton of goals. I think the Capitals are a solid team, but you know what? The Capitals are a solid team in the regular season, and with them, it's about what they do in the playoffs. The Penguins are always an enigma. They add Phil Kessel. They have some tremendous top quality players. But do they have depth? And then Columbus was decimated by injuries last year. The year before last, tremendously skilled team. And if I remember correctly, they took the Penguins to 7 games in the first round, I think, and everybody was so high on them, and they were just decimated last year. But I think those 5 teams, I wouldn't be surprised by almost any order of finish. Would I be surprised if the Rangers finished 5th? Yeah, I'd be surprised by that. But, I think you can juggle those teams for the regular season, and where they come out, they come out. So, I think it's a 5-team division.
Yeah, 5 teams and a pretty exciting battle for the top with the Metropolitan Division. So let's go to Mike in North Jersey. One item I forgot to add about the Capitals, they added TJ Oshie, who you remember from the St. Louis Blues and the American hockey team in the international play where he had that big shootout win against Russia. So it was a good time. It was a good time. Or did they win? I thought they won. Well, either way, let's get Mike in North Jersey and his outlook of the Metropolitan Division.
Well, I'd like to thank Parcells for criticizing the Rangers' defense the way he did, because now I don't have to do it and get yelled at for being an anti-Ranger Mongo. I think it's spot on for that. They have 3 guys that basically can't skate. And although, maybe if they can get McElrath in the lineup and replace Boyle, that'd probably be the best thing for them down the stretch. I'd agree that it is a 5-team division. Columbus, I'm not entirely sold on yet, though. I know they were good 2 years ago. But when your defense has Jack Johnson on the first pairing, I mean, come on. And then Bobrovsky, yes, he's won a Vezina Trophy. He was good last year, but he's kind of inconsistent. So, but, you know, if you look at the bottom three, it's Philadelphia, the Devils, Carolina. I actually think that the Devils will probably finish sixth because if I'm seeing every prediction, they're listing Philadelphia sixth, and either the Devils are either in last or in seventh. You know, the last two preseason games were against Philly. They were with essentially the regular season lineups, and we were clearly better than them. But to get back to the top five, the Rangers, yeah, I think they regress a little bit for the reasons Parcells brought up. But the way the Rangers are built, I think, is actually very effective for the regular season because if your legs are a little tired or you're a little bit off with your passes or off with your positioning, the Rangers are off to the races. I mean, they're constantly looking to stretch you out and come in with speed through the neutral zone and then hit the zone with speed. And, you know, if you're off, they're just going to put odd man rushes on you. And I think when you're not necessarily ready for a team with that kind of speed and you're not sharp, you can get embarrassed. And that's really what the Rangers would do when they were playing well last year, is that they would catch teams flat-footed and just embarrass them. I don't know if it works as well in the playoffs because they do let more of they let you be a little bit more physical and play more. The rules really in the playoffs are different, but getting back on topic, Washington. Now, I do think they made moves that significantly improved them. You know, Oshie and Williams instead of Troy Brouwer. I'll take that any day of the week. But to me, Washington, while I think they might have a very good regular season, the makeup of that team, as far as I'm concerned, is a bunch of choke artists. And if you look at the people on that team that have been involved in blowing 3-1 series lead, and that's since the Rangers last year. It happened, they blew a 3-0 series lead, and to me, Alexander Ovechkin, he is not a guy that you want as, you know, the star of your team, especially when you get in the playoffs. Very good in the regular season, but you know, I really think they would be better off just trading him and getting assets for him back. In the playoffs, he's not a very good player. Let's be honest about it. And Braden Holtby, I don't care what his save percentage is, he always seems to let up a questionable goal in a big spot in a big game. So while I think they have a ton of talent and maybe they'll figure it out, I just don't think they have the mental makeup really to, you know, persevere or, you know, get through the playoffs. Maybe they'll finish first. It's a good possibility. The Islanders, Dave, I thought you pretty much nailed it in your open there. They didn't do anything to address their problems with defense to get Marek Zagorowski.
Mm-hmm.
I think they. Yep. I know he was trying out for them, but trust me, Marek Zagorowski will help you with your power play, but in his own end, he's lost. And that was the major problem with the Islanders last year. When they were not on the attack, on the move, when they tried to, like, shut it down and go into their own end, they would just stand there, and teams would just dominate them with puck possession. And the seventh game against the Capitals, look at that last. Like, what was that? It looked like guys who didn't know how to play hockey. Back to Pittsburgh, you know, basically the same old story. We have a ton of high-end forward talent. They should have some healthy defensemen this year, which should help them out. That was really their problem last year. They couldn't get the puck going and start their breakouts with all those injuries on defense. But, you know, always you have Marc-Andre Fleury, who remains a huge question mark going into the playoffs. You know, he's another guy. Do you really trust this team? They kind of have that Mongo team. And Phil Kessel, as talented as he is, I guess we're going to find out if his reputation is a result of the horrible Toronto media or if it's warranted. So really, I think any of the top four teams, Islanders, Rangers, Penguins, Capitals, could finish in first. I kind of see the Columbus more as fifth. I don't know. I guess I can address the Devils in another a little bit later on because I want to get into a couple of details about them. But yeah, you have those five teams, and I think you have four in the playoffs, definitely, probably five. We'll see.
Very well done, Mike. Thanks very much for that. Yeah, I do want to bring up the Devils since I know you have a lot to say about it. So let's hopefully we'll find some time at the end of the program to get into that. If not, just remind me. So let's get to our next division. We now move to the Western Conference, and we get to the Blackhawks, the defending Cup champions. They've done it a lot. This is now their, third championship in 6 years, or third and 5, something like that. 2010, 2013, and then this year, 2015. So Blackhawks have had quite a good history, and they've had a lot of prolific success. But right now, you start to wonder about that team, depending on what happens with the Patrick Kane situation, if that gets cleared. And like you both said, they got to get resolved. Whatever they do, they got to resolve this thing right away. The longer this goes, the worse it's going to get. We mentioned some cap moves that were made. Sharp and Saad were taken out due to the cap, but the Blue Jackets trade of Anisimov, Daniel Moore, and Trop for Saad. I think that was, or was that Sharp? I think whoever it was that they traded for those four will help their depth. But overall, it's a very good team, and a lot of the key players are still there. Really, as long as Kane and Taze are there and Corey Crawford's doing a decent job at goal, that's already a big part of the way there. And Andrew Shaw's still in the mix, so that's the story of the Blackhawks. The rest of the division, well, it's going to be interesting. We got the Blues, who have a lot of young talent. They were known as a defensive team in the beginning, but they have some good guys that can score. Tarasenko, Steen, Schwartz, Backett, Stastny. They didn't lose to EJ Oshie. We mentioned that already. And we hear that Jake Allen is going to take over as a number one goalie at some point over Brian Elliott. Predators, Philip Forsberg is said to be the key factor of the offense. And we will see how they do along with Neil, who joins the team. And then the Wild, the Jets, and the Jets had a great year last year, but they need help on offense. They can't score goals. They did no scoring against the Ducks last year in the playoffs. So the Kane trade gets made. Tyler Myers and Drew Stafford come in, and they might actually call up Nikolaj Ehlers to help them out. So that's a team that's doing well on the way up, but they need to score more goals. The Stars have the opposite problem. They can score lots of goals, but very similar issues that the Islanders have. They cannot stop anybody. And Lettinen may have had these moments, but he's not good enough. So they signed Antti Niemi, who was with the San Jose Sharks, to try to platoon with Kari Lettinen. So we've mentioned these guys in the past, Ben and Seguin and Spezza. All these guys are good at scoring. And John Klingberg had an outstanding rookie season, 40 points as a defenseman. Very nice. And the Avalanche. Kind of an interesting situation with the Avalanche because they were a really nice feel-good story of the year 2 years ago, but last year they missed the playoffs. So what they did, they added, quote, size and grit. It's still a young team. Couple of really old guys on there, though. Jerome McGinley and Alex Tangay. And O'Reilly's out of the team after they failed to negotiate a contract for him. One pickup I thought I liked, Francois Beauchemin from the Ducks and Nicholas Sadorov acquired in the O'Reilly trade. And it says here, bad power play but good penalty kill. So we have the Blackhawks, Blues, Predators, Wild, who I didn't even mention yet, the Jets, Stars, and the Avalanche. There's a lot to cover. So, Mike, I'll give it to you first. Who do you like in the Central Division?
In the regular season, I'll probably go with Nashville. They were an extremely solid team last year. A dynamic first pairing with Shea Weber and Roman Yossi. Just all around, just this team speed throughout their lineup, size and speed. They were, they played the Blackhawks at full strength. They lost Shea Weber, and they took it 7 games, and one of the games was a triple overtime loss. So really, they probably gave the Blackhawks their toughest challenge because Blackhawks were at full strength then. So we'll see if they can repeat that. If they do, look out for them. St. Louis. Now, this is an interesting one. Obviously, they have the regular season figured out, but I expect to see them in the playoffs. But once again, who's their goalie going to be at it? They say they're going to give it to Allen. Well, he's got to go out and win it out. And this team just has such a history of choke teams in the playoffs every year. It's like they never live up to their expectations. So
I blame Hitchcock, man.
It really could be for them this year's going to probably determine the course that they take. If we have another early exit, I'd expect some major shakeups for them. So we got here. Now the Blackhawks, to be honest, watching that game, I don't want to read too much into it, but Trevor Van Riemsdyk and Bailey on the third pairing, they just look atrocious. So I'd expect them to look for some defensive help later on. The high-end skill is still there, obviously, but this might be a year like 2011, I believe, where they played the year after they won their first cup, and they played the Canucks in the first round. And as the year got on, they got better, and they'll give someone and they'll be tough to knock out in the playoffs. If you look at a stat of them from last year, they were 33-1 or 33-0 with the lead after 2 periods. So this is a group of guys who they know how to win. It's that simple, and there's no stat really that can put that can display that. They just have the character. They know what to do in a big spot. Now, I'm not going to get into what would happen if Patrick Kane got indicted on charges. So that just changes it. Going to Super Bowl. What else do we got? Minnesota. This is we have to find out if Devin Dubnyk is the real deal, or did he just get hot for half the season and did they sign him to way too lucrative contract? I think that's really the determining factor there. Who else? Colorado is an example of how you don't run a franchise. Joe Sakic, great hockey player, but this guy doesn't get it. You can't win with a puck possession rate at like 40%. And each year they think the problem is that, we need to add more grit, and they get rid of their best possession players every year. Last year, best puck possession player on the Colorado Avalanche, Ryan O'Reilly. So let's let him go. I saw them playing the Kings in a preseason game the other day, and the shots after 2 periods were 28-6 Los Angeles. Yeah. So they're going to be a disaster. And what are you doing? Yeah, so they should be entertaining. Dallas, this is interesting because Nichushkin, who had a tremendous rookie year for them, missed all but 6 games last year. He comes back in and is an impact forward. They might have so much offense that it's not going to matter if their defense is a little bit lost, which I still think it is. And they got to rely on some young guys to step up. Goaltending, Antti Niemi is what he is. Basically, they brought in another version of Kari Lehtonen.
Pretty much.
It's been upgraded. It'll just be which guy is playing better. But, Nichushkin has a good year. They're making the playoffs just on offense alone. So that's that.
Nicely done, Mike. Let's go to Parcells. Any additional thoughts on the Central Division?
Yeah, just full disclosure, I should know a lot more of the Western Conference than I do. But you know what? I'm going to continue picking St. Louis until they finally win. With it's like Backus and Stastny up the middle, and Steen and some of the guys that were mentioned earlier. I think for the regular season and the long haul that they could very well be the best squad there. Chicago we've talked about ad nauseum so far tonight, but everybody knows what they have. I think this is possibly another 5-team playoff division.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Pacific looks tough, though. Well, all right.
Well, with the Blues and the Blackhawks, I think the Wild are talented. Dallas can score like no other. Well, not like no other, but they can score a ton. And Nashville's a quality squad. So, I know we're going to get to the Pacific and whatnot, but I think this division is deeper than the Pacific. So
I must admit, you might have a point. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to wrap up and say because of that depth, I think they can get 5 teams, and 3 to the Pacific.
I will say that you do have competent teams. Just about all of them are competent teams. I think the Avalanche are off that list, but everybody else looks solid. Like Blackhawks, solid. I mean, obviously they're the defending Cup champions, and they don't have any indicators that they have lost enough talent to really be anything other than a playoff team. Blues, we mentioned them, and that is a lot of talent to lose in the first round. That's crazy. I mean, they gotta kick that habit now. This is the time. Because they're never going to shake it if they don't now at this point. So they gotta get on it and do that. Preds I like too. Wild is interesting. You mentioned that. Both of you mentioned that. The Jets are going to be interesting because I wonder if they'll be able to make the playoffs again. It's going to depend on a few things.
Dave, real quick. Dave?
Yep. All yours.
I forgot the Jets, so just let me quickly say that I don't think it's as much offense as it is Andrei Pavlich for them will determine the fate of their season because he had been a terrible goalie for years, really below average, and he has great athleticism, and they stuck with him, and he had a good year last year. But if he regresses back to what he was, that will be the downfall of Winnipeg. But they have a very solid group of players and very deep. Now, maybe they lack the high-end scoring, but they're a good team. Just question marks in net.
But also, let me also kick in about Winnipeg is rumors out there, and they've been circulating for a while about possibly moving Dustin Byfuglien, whether that happens or not. That will affect the type of team that they currently are. So that'll be something to watch also.
I seem to remember that Byfuglien was known for making dumb penalties anyway. That might actually be it might be a good move. Mike, anything on Byfuglien?
No, obviously that'll change the dynamics of their team, but it remains to see how it does. Maybe they would be better with what they get in return. But it's a good point by Parcells to bring it up.
Good points by both of you on the Jets. This is a team with a lot of upside. So if you get the production at goal, they'll be good. But it doesn't. I mean, it might be asking a lot, knowing what we know. But, there's always the opportunity to switch them out, too. So we will see. Personally, I think the Jets are going to be good enough to be in contention for the playoff spot the whole year. I think the question is, will there be too much depth in the rest of the way in the division to keep them out of it, or will they make it? I think they could make it because, again, their defense is decent, and that's going to keep them in a lot of games. So I think they'll have a pretty good season. So let's now get to the final division in our preview. The Pacific. And initially I scoffed at the idea that there could be 5 teams from the Central. But the problem with that theory is that if you look at the Pacific, there are 2 teams definitively that look like they're just going to be bad. Canucks, for example. Now look, I think that maybe Tortorella can rally them to have a useful season, and you can never count out the Sedins. And the Coyotes, what the hell is going on? Brad Richardson, Steve Downey, Justin Jeffrey. I mean, this is brutal, and Mike Smith is terrible. So that's a bad team. And the Oilers might be good. And here's one that I think you'll appreciate, Parcells. They got Cam Talbot as their goaltender. So all the Ranger fans complaining about getting Cam Talbot to start, now you're going to see it. Just go watch an Edmonton game. So you'll see about that. And then the Sharks, pretty much in the tank, so to speak. Although they're winning tonight against the Kings so far. I think they're done, personally. They're going to go with Martin Jones as the goaltender, which is a fun story for me as a Kings fan. But you got some old guys, Thornton and Marlowe. You have some young guys. You have Pavelski and Couture. And then they added Paul Martin and Joel Ward. So that's the story of the Sharks. And I mentioned the Canucks already. I don't know. I mean, BX is gone. He went to the Ducks. Sutter, Proust, and Bartowski were added, so that's a little bit of help, but I just can't see much from them. The teams that are exciting are the 3 teams that were at the top last year. The Calgary Flames. This is a really fun team. Johnny Gaudreau, clutch. He was scoring some serious goals in the playoffs last year against the Canucks. And it's a fun team. A lot of guys that can score. Sean Monahan, Lance Boma, and Jerry Hoodler. Mark Giordano. They'll all try to build on career years. That's the problem. Are these guys going to do it again? If all of them had career years at once, makes you worry about them a little bit. But I do think this is a team that can score. The Kings. Here it is. A huge pickup in free agency. I mean, a game changer. Milan Lucic, who they picked up from the Boston Bruins in free agency. Some other changes in the defense, which needed to happen because Voinov just became such a big distraction. He's gone. He will return to Russia. And Robin Regehr is gone. And Sekera, who they traded for, left the team. Not surprising. He was more of a rental. So to augment that defense, they added Christian Urhoff, who just got called for a penalty at the end of the first period. And that will go to a young defense featuring Jake Muzzin, Alec Martinez, Braden McNabb, and everybody knows him, the all-star Drew Doughty. So with Lucic's pickup, the Kings have a really, 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 really good series of forwards. But the question, I think, for everybody here is whether that's going to translate into more goals, because they've always had inconsistency with scoring. The question is, will the Kings be able to be more consistent at getting production and getting points? We will find out. But if you look at it on paper, it's very, very good. I mean, you lose Justin Williams, you lose Jarrett Stoll, but you pick up Lucic. I mean, that's a big-time pickup. So you have Lucic, Kopitar, Gaborik, who they signed an extension, I believe, last year, and Dustin Brown. Another question for the Kings. I want to field this one out to you guys. Jonathan Quick, is he all he's cracked up to be? Because he just did not have a good season last year. I'm curious to hear what you think of Jonathan Quick as we go into the next season. And the front runner, I think everyone would agree on this, the Ducks. Even though they lost a bunch of role players, you still have a very good team. And they've added a few guys. Bieksa, for example. Carl Hagelin. And Kadublan. Horkoffs, Chris Stewart, Santorelli, Shane O'Brien. The Ducks know that they have to take another step forward. They've been doing too many of these mid-round and conference final losses. I think they're getting pretty desperate. So you can see they made a lot of moves in the offseason. But they didn't make any moves at goal, which is like, what the hell? It's like you have these shaky guys like Anderson and Josh Gibson trying to compete for goal, and they're going to leave them to do it again. It's just nuts. So that's your Pacific. That's my look at it. Let us go to Parcells briefly on the Pacific Division. Thank you for staying with us the whole time. But is this the Ducks division to lose? Who do you like from the Pacific?
Yeah, I think it's the Ducks division to lose. I think it's, like I said, I think it's going to be 5-3. I think there are 4 teams here fighting for 3 spots. Well, actually, I don't think I think Anaheim's the cream of the division. Getzlaf and Kessler down the middle. I think they're just a solid team. I think the Kings. You want to talk about Quick, and is Quick as good? Yeah, I think Quick is very good. I think Quick is an excellent goaltender, and you have Drew Doughty out in front of him, and you have a deep group of forwards. I think the Kings are right back in the mix. I think Calgary is a solid team also. I think the last spot in that division is going to come down to Calgary or San Jose. But I think clearly Anaheim is the cream of the division. And then when it gets to the playoffs, it's just going to be a brutal battle in the division finals between them and the Kings. I think that's something that you could see going 7 games.
Yep.
Two big teams brawling it out, two teams from the same area. The Kings, I think, for lack of a better phrase, are going to be the Kings again this year. Whether that puts them up and above ahead of Anaheim, I'm not so sure. But I think those 2 teams are the cream of the division.
I think I agree on that. And what we have for the Kings, they really crumbled at the end. And the injuries got to them. They were stretching out Drew Doughty for like almost 20 minutes a game. I mean, it was bad. So clearly they were hit pretty hard by the Voinov sexual assault issue or presumed sexual assault issue. Now they're past that. They've stacked they've added to their defense. It's at least complete again. So it's a young defense now. There've been some transitions. In the very beginning of the Cup run, they had Rob Scuderi as part of their defense, and now he's obviously on a different team. So they've made very subtle changes over time, and I think they've played this about as well as they could. I mean, the Lucic pickup is nice. I'm looking forward to a pretty good season. I don't know if they're going to have the same intensity defensively as they've had in years past, but this is going to be a good team. And I think the Ducks likewise are going to be the best team out of everybody. So pretty good. Some of the fun players to watch. I mentioned Beauchemin, he's gone. But Nino was gone a while ago, but I enjoyed it when he was there. And some others. We'll see. So let's give it to Mike for the final analysis of the Pacific Division. What do you see from the Pacific?
I see Anaheim once again as a strong regular season team for sure.
Yep.
We have goaltending issues with them.
Yes.
So do you really trust Freddie Anderson in the big spot? I don't. Some possible issues with depth. And then if you look at, they're kind of like almost the Montreal, except a better version of Montreal, the East, when I said that the analytics crowd, or the fancy stats, whatever you want to call them, they don't like the Ducks at all because they don't possess the puck well. They don't get enough scoring chances. They let up too many scoring chances. Basically, everything's average except for they have Getzlaff, Perry, and they find ways to win. Can they keep up their record in one-goal games last year, which was like I think they had one loss and 7 ties?
They were amazing in one-goal games. It was unbelievable.
I don't know. We'll see. I think they did give up, though, Kyle Palmieri, Edom, Bolesky. They did bring in Carl Hagelin, who I always really liked as a player. But are they better than last year? I don't think so, unless their defense steps up and maybe Gibson can get his act together. The Kings are in for a bounce-back season for sure. If you look at the metrics last year, they were it was almost just it almost defied reality that this team did not make the playoffs. I was just looking at stuff, and over the last 45 games of the season, they had one of the best goal differentials in the league at even strength, like scoring chances, puck possession, everything. They just weren't winning games, and they went 3-15 in overtime and shootout. So that'll correct itself, I think, somewhat. And then obviously you had just so many off-the-ice problems. You had Mike Richards smuggling coke across the border.
That's right.
And then you had Jarrett Stoll selling it or doing stuff with it. Who knows? So you got those guys out. You got the guy assault Voinov. He can be assaulting his wife in Russia now, I guess. They probably don't have a law.
Yeah, you can get paid.
Anyway, and also a year to rest up, because I think they were just burnt out last year. And Vid, I said to you at some point during the season that something just seemed off last year. That I couldn't quite put my finger on it, that something was off. And I think we found out, there were obviously things going on behind the scenes.
Right.
But something that news that came out today, they're apparently trying to make a settlement now with Richards. Now, if they do that, then wouldn't that brings up like Pandora's box with, does his salary count? And
oh boy,
there could be cap stuff, but that remains to be seen. That's not anything we can really get into without knowledge of it. The San Jose Sharks. Well, let me tell you something. I am going to enjoy eavesdropping on their HF boards this year with Peter DeBoer, because they all seem to think that when he had a good team, he did well. This guy is one of the. Here's what he does well. He installs systems well, and he gets guys to play them well. He then develops favorites. He makes insane personnel decisions, and he has no ability to adjust ever. With his first Devils team, he had Kovalchuk, Patrick Elias, who scored more points that year than Zach Parise. I'm sorry, you had those three players, and Brodeur playing well down the stretch, Andy Green, and you had a David Clarkson scoring 30 goals. I'm sorry, the 2012 Devils were actually pretty loaded, and they underachieved in the regular season. So I can't wait to just see him make insane personnel decisions with San Jose and just see that team. Maybe they will make the playoffs. I doubt it. I think they'll get old. They're old. They're going to have some injuries. And I can't wait to see them blow leads in the third period, because the Pete DeBoer signature is the second they have a lead, they try to back off in the offensive zone. DeBoer runs this very heavy forecheck. The second they back off, it's like going through Swiss cheese. They just sit back, guys. The other teams hit the line with speed, and they create champions. So that'll be fun to watch. Calgary. Their possession numbers were so bad last year that I think they have to regress a little bit. Not like the Avalanche, because they're young and they have so much talent. Goaltending is a question mark. If they miss the playoffs this year, it wouldn't surprise me, but Calgary, starting next year for sure, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, to say the very least. Vancouver, I think the Sedins are going to, they kind of both had bounce-back years last year. I don't see that. I know they're trying to bring in youth, but I don't think Vancouver was very good, to be honest about it. So I don't see much coming out of them. Anyone else I need to talk about? Calgary.
Oilers.
Oilers, 1 year away. We can watch Connor McDavid, see how he does. Cam Talbot. Now, if all you need to know about Brian Monzo, is that he thinks Cam Talbot is like the worst goalie ever, even though he has the highest career save percentage among all goalies with 50 games played at least. So, he basically wanted to get rid of Cam Talbot and Derek Stepan last year for a bag of pucks. Well, how dumb can you be? Because, I'm sorry, Cam Talbot was remarkable last year with the Rangers. Now, Edmonton's kind of been the deathbed of goaltenders because their defense has been so atrocious. So we'll see how he handles that. But Edmonton, they're not going to do anything in the standings this year, I don't think. But obviously a ton of talent.
Nicely done, Mike. Yeah, I'm. It's a terrible job by me not bringing up DeBoer because I was salivating seeing that name on the roster. Like, oh boy, like this is Mike's guy, Peter DeBoer on the Sharks. Oh, that's gonna be fun. Can't wait to see how he botches games. It's gonna be great. Oh boy, that could be. If Sharks fans wherever they are, that should be a fun read. I may read those PF boards with you, buddy. So let's get to the predictions then for the conferences. I have on my notes that we were going to predict the divisions. We did that already, so let's just recap that. Atlantic Division, I had the Lightning winning the division. Mike, you had the Lightning too. Parcells, who did you have with the division?
The Lightning.
Yeah, okay, so that's a sweep. So Lightning all the way across. Let's go to the Metro. I will pick the Rangers, although not with a lot of confidence. Mike, your prediction for the Metro?
Washington.
That's not a bad pick. Okay, Parcells.
I'm going to be a total homer tonight. I'm going Rangers.
Okay, now to the Central Division. Yeah, I go chalk here. This is regrettable. I probably would rather have picked a different team, but I picked Blackhawks. Mike?
Nashville.
Yeah, you mentioned Nashville. You're right. Parcells.
St. Louis.
Wow, we're all over the place. Okay, so one has the Blues, one has the Preds, and one has the Blackhawks. And actually, to be fair, it does change every year. It seems like someone else wins that division every year. I'm not going to waste time asking about the Pacific. We all have it, the Ducks. So that is that. Who wins the Eastern Conference this year? It's early to make that prediction, but let's ask it anyway. Who's your Eastern Conference champion, Mike?
Tampa Bay.
Parcells?
Rangers.
Wow, you're going all out with this. Okay.
Yeah, I'm being total homer. Whenever I think they're good, I never pick them. I always go elsewhere on them. But I don't think there's anybody out there. I think Tampa is probably the best. But after Tampa, I don't think there's anybody better than the Rangers, and I think Rangers can knock off Tampa. Plus, Dave, we've talked in the past about how difficult it is to get back to the finals and repeat, and I think that might be a bugaboo for the Lightning, and I think that's part of the reason I'm going Rangers here.
That's a fair point, because even the Blackhawks can't get back to the final in back-to-back years. So really well put. I mean, Mike mentioned a good reason for that. You just get worn out. Playoff hockey is so physical and intense. The Kings had nothing left by the end of that season physically. They were done. So it's actually a relief that they got a full off-season rest and could really get a full training camp in, and they'll be focused this year. That's the idea. So let's go for the West winners. Now, this is going to be interesting. I don't know where I'm going to go. Oh, I didn't give you a prediction. I predict the Lightning to win the East as well. So even though I said all that stuff, I still think the Lightning are going to win. Here's why I think that. It's the most dynamic team. It's because it's a young team. I feel like they're not going to get hit as hard with the injuries and the fatigue as other teams might. Otherwise, I'd probably pick Montreal. But again, Montreal needs to score at some point during the game. Subban will do a good job of that, but they need more. So let's go to the West. All right, Mike, who's winning the Western Conference?
Your Los Angeles Kings.
Oh, baby. All right, Parcells.
Anaheim.
You know, and I forgot to ask this question of both of you guys. Why did they not address the goaltender position? They really just, is it for money reasons? Like, they should have done something. Why didn't they, what did they not, what were they, what led them to...
Well, I mean, I think there needs to be a market of somebody who you think... If you think there's somebody out there that's considerably better than Frederik Andersen, then by all means,
right,
try and go out there and make something happen. But if you don't think Cam Talbot or, who else was in the market? And, I can't think right now. But if you don't think those guys are better than Andersen, then you're just better off standing pat and not giving up assets to make a move.
I might have gone Niemi at least. It would have been something, but it always depends on the money. Mike, would you like to add to the question about Ducks goaltending?
Because I think their solution eventually is Gibson, and if you brought in someone like Niemi, it would clog up his road to the NHL.
So you think Gibson does have upside in that case? All right. Well, I mean, he seemed to fall off a lot. So look, they probably wouldn't. They know the situation more than I do. So I'll give him another shot. For the West, I'm going to be like Parcells. I'm going to pick the Kings too. Here's the thing. Look, maybe they're not going to win tonight, but this is.
You really just mushed my finals prediction, Dave.
Oh no!
Kidding me? We know that's not going to happen now.
Well,
thanks, Dave.
I don't know who else I'd pick from there, though. I mean, the Ducks, like you guys said, have issues at goaltender. I talked about how Quick is having a down season, but he's still heads and shoulders above anybody the Ducks have, anybody that anybody else has in that division. I mean, who else are you even going to go with? I mean, from that conference. So, not Parcells. I'm sorry, you had a question?
No question at all. No, I was just thanking you for mushing the Tampa Kings pick.
All right, so now let's get a Stanley Cup Final prediction. Since obviously we already did this, but all right, Mike. Even though we probably have no shot at it now, who are you seeing for the Stanley Cup this year?
The New York Rangers.
What, did you just change it?
Come on.
Did you change it?
Tampa Bay.
Okay, Tampa Bay. All right. So Lightning. Okay. All right, Parcells, how about it?
Yeah, I'm going clearly because I never picked them, and clearly because I think this is their last year to do it. Lundqvist is going to be a year older. Their immovable defense crew is going to be a year older. I'm going all-out homer and going with the Rangers.
All right, Rangers for Parcells. Really did go all out with these predictions. I'm going to follow suit, though. I'm going Kings. You know what? If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But this is a great team on paper, and Lucic has done some great stuff, not just in the regular season, but in the playoffs. I like this team. I mean, it's got a little bit younger. Lucic is not younger, but they did get younger overall. And it's going to be a rested team, well-coached team. What more could you want? I like the Kings. So there you have it, your Stanley Cup predictions for the 2015-16 campaign. So, Mike, I'll give it to you. Final thoughts, things you're looking forward to in the NHL this year?
Actually seeing a Devils team that can skate. I don't know how much they're going to score, but honestly, I'm not going to go player by player, but if you go through their entire lineup, they have one bad skater maybe now when they basically had an entire group of bad skaters at forward. So, we don't have time to go through every player, but there are so many media members who clearly just aren't paying attention. If you're not going to do any homework at all, why even bother writing anything about it? I mean, I saw stuff saying that the Devils have virtually the same team as last year. That's one of the most laughable comments I've ever seen anywhere. It's basically a very overhaul. The roster's been overhauled quite a bit. Now, are they rebuilding? Yes, but I think they're actually significantly better than they were last year. They play in a conference in a division that's very tough. And they're not going to be looking to add things at the deadline or try to get better. They're going to be looking to develop players and build for the future. But, if you want to predict the Devils to do badly, that's fine. But at least do your homework on who's on the team.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I was just looking at the Kings game right now. They just gave up another goal. So, but Jink's already at work. But let's go to Parcells for any other thoughts about the NHL season. Anything you're looking forward to?
No real other significant thoughts. I'm just glad hockey is back. I enjoy all the sports, but there's just something about getting into the NHL season and getting going, and it's such a long grind throughout the entire year, and winning the cup is so difficult that it's a fun ride throughout the season. I think for me personally, more so than any of the sports that I root for. So I'm just glad it's back. So I appreciate you inviting me on here, Dave. I have a blast with this every single time I come on. So thanks again, and appreciate it.
You got it. All right, guys. Well, it's been a blast for me too. Have a great evening, everybody. Take care of yourselves and enjoy the great NHL season. Have fun, everyone. Take care.
Thanks,
guys.
See you.
All right, fellas. Well, that's going to do it for our show. It was really a lot of fun. Hope you all enjoyed it too. Thanks to everybody who joined us for this program tonight. Really a lot of fun. We really got into it with the Kids Club picks. We got into it with the NHL preview. Quite a show. Thanks to Andy, Ron, Ottis, and John. Thanks to our friend Mike and our friend Parcells. And I'm Dave Medina. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy all the games. We'll see you next time.